Fill my water. It'd be embarrassing.
I've done that. I've done that, and it is embarrassing.
We should make a roll of paper towels up here for people.
I got some napkins. I'm ready.
Dollar bill, you can plug it up.
Yeah. I'll soak it right up.
It's called money laundering.
All right, I call to order this Grand Haven City Council special work session. It is Monday, March 4th, 2019. So Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Vanessa?
Here.
Ruger?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
And Caleb?
Here. We have two items on our work session agenda this evening. Pat, did you want to introduce any?
I would if I could.
Okay.
Derek Gatos, you probably can't spot him back there in that
Not at all.
colored shirt. But he's here to present at least the first third. Him and Mike Mofrey from Avonmarsh are here to talk about the marina study.
Give me your honor and fellow council. Yes, Mike Murphy is here from Avonmarsh. He's going to give the presentation tonight. He's the one that gave us the final report. This is the preliminary engineering report that we partnered with the DNR on the marina for the next steps. And so it's so large of a report. There's just so much there. We decided to split it up in threes. You've got the whole report, so maybe you read ahead, but we'll just go over the first couple third of the report and start there, and then we'll be back in a month, and then finalize it in May. So, Mike, you want to?
All right.
All right, well, thanks for having me tonight. Derek stole my thunder. The good news is we're not going over the whole report tonight, just part of it. So we took a step back there and decided to split this up, take it piece by piece, and very deliberately go through everything. So with that said, I'm going to try the new clicker here. We delivered the draft report February 1st, made some minor changes. So the version that was in your packet, I believe, is the dated February 26th. Tonight we're going to go over the history of the marina, recent history, and the condition evaluation. And then in April and May, we're going to go over the market study and the public survey first, then the improvements plan and phasing after that. And then hopefully in April 2020, be applying for a State of Michigan Waterways grant to help pay for the next steps as far as the implementation. So recent marina history, this is kind of setting the table for where we are today and where we need to go. In 2005, as many of you are aware, new floating docks were installed. There were some limitations on those docks, however. We can only go a certain distance from shore with the end of those finger piers, so that limits the dock length. And in addition, because of that, the gangways also pinch that dock between that dock limit line and the wall. So it leaves us with basically 25-foot and 30-foot slips that are there now. So it was pretty limited there. There were no riprap removals or dredging activities that took place before that project. In 2008, focus shifted to the fixed docks, which are located downstream in the marina. It got us longer slips to better serve that market, including slip widths and also ADA widths on the docks. Utility updates for those larger slips, riprap along the seawall, and then also new sidewalks and a new promenade along the river. Here's one of the new docks. It's a fixed pier. These are not floating, obviously. They're decked with composite decking, which has a longer lifespan, requires less maintenance over their life. Then in 2013-14, phase 2 improvements were undertaken, with the primary need here being that water levels were so low, which is hard to imagine now. We're about 4 feet higher than we were back then. There were issues with the timber walls around the upper portion of the marina. The docks were actually bottoming out on the riprap, which had started to migrate towards the river. And then we also wanted to get longer slips in there to better serve that market, again, to get more of those larger boats in there. However, during bidding, we found that the steel costs went way up, so we were very limited on the funding, which was fixed at that time. We also found that the material that was being removed actually was regulated, so the cost went from, let's just say, $20 a cubic yard up to $50 a cubic yard. So we were pretty restricted in what could be built during that phase. Nevertheless, it went on. I remember reading some of the older reports. Went well into April with the ice that year, which I wouldn't be surprised to see happen again this year. but the work was completed. A new seawall was put in to replace that timber wall. Portions of the dredging and removals were done, but not all of it. There's still a lot of the riprap that's there. Several storm outfalls were also repaired to make sure that they didn't continue to scour behind that seawall and cause damage. In some areas, actually, sidewalk was replaced as well, areas that were impacted by those storm outfalls mainly. So there's what it looks like now, or this is a photo in the summertime anyway, not now. So you can see parts of the riprap that are still there. You can see also another area where it was removed. So the end game is that we want that riprap to be out of there to create space so the docks can move closer to land. So that gives a good view of what that looks like. So also in 2013-14, there was a staff report identifying that what are the future upgrades? What do we set the table for? What are we trying to get to in the end? And marina operations staff and city staff affirmed that those two major goals are lengthening those finger piers, providing for larger slips. And that need is really confirmed by the market data that we had back then, and again, what we've seen during our study this year. So with that, we walked through, took a look at all the docks, identified what are some of the conditions needs that might govern our decisions moving forward. A couple of these things have actually been addressed recently, but priority one, safety, repair, and code. The biggest thing is electrical. So the electric on those docks was 05, well before many of us knew about what electric shock drowning was. And so as the docks are replaced, these ground fault systems need to be installed into the electrical. The floating docks, while they're only almost 15 years old, the decking is in really poor condition. They were actually manufactured by a company that isn't around anymore, and they were manufactured by that company at that time because the bigger companies had some strike issues during that year. So you see some things in that decking where you see those perpendicular deck boards for about a foot, which you don't normally see in floating docks. So some of that stuff is really starting to cause issues. We saw the guide piles with signage being restricted by moving up and down by that sign. That's all been corrected at this point. And then we also saw some of the utility lines which hang underneath the gangways that connect land to the docks. Some of those hang down into the water. And during weeks like this week, when you've got moving ice on that river, obviously having utilities hanging in the water is a bad idea. And then lastly, of course, ADA accessibility with the floating docks and the fish station. The gangways are a little short for all water levels. Today, they're compatible with ADA requirements, slope requirements, but at lower water levels, they'd be a little short of that. So certainly things that we want to address moving forward. There's a fish cleaning station. Of course, it's got a few steps that go down to the actual fish cleaning area, which really should be improved to be able to provide ADA accessibility. Here's one of the decking examples where you see a bend in the floating docks, and you see these odd wedge-shaped decking areas with, you can see how many screws are into those things trying to hold them down, but it's a lost cause. Then there's a utility hanging down into the water. Of course, today when you get moving ice, the potential is there for damage. Priority two, you've got preventative maintenance needs, was how we categorized it. Dock replacements, and while they're not, in dire strait today, everything combined together, the need for larger slips, the condition of the decking, the utility issues really combine to make new docks make sense. Flotation, we've seen some areas where the gangway is landing onto the dock, and it's really, you can see the freeboard of the dock is much lower in those areas. So there's not ample flotation provided for that load. And then seawall and sidewalk repairs. The area where the charter dock is located, the fixed sheet pile area between, at the downstream end of the floating piers, you've got some seawall issues there and some settling sidewalks that should be addressed. And then a few miscellaneous broken cleats within the docks. So here's where the gangway lands, and you can see how the height of the dock dips down where that gangway is loading up that floating dock. And that's something that you see usually over a couple decades, not after 15 years. So it's a little surprising at this stage to see it that extreme. But again, these docks have also been moved a few times for these projects. The gangways had to be lengthened at one time because of water levels. And when you start doing those kinds of modifications, the design life of those docks really drops down. And then lastly, some aesthetic and management type issues where the utility pedestals are looking pretty rough at this point. You've got all kinds of insects and spiders living in them over the summer. And then rules and enforcement regarding some of the dock modifications. So you don't normally want people to be installing timber stairways and things on the docks. That's something that probably when new docks come in should be well thought through as far as what guidelines are going to guide the use of those docks. Here's an example of actually an ice machine on one of the finger piers, which is not something that we normally like to allow in a marina. So just an example of one of the rules that really needs to be thought through. So with that said, that's the major points of the condition assessment. Just wanted to go over the highlights. Of course, you have the whole 200 and some odd page report to read when it's this cold out. But wanted to make sure we hit on those today. And next session in April, again, we're going to be looking at what did the boaters and the public say when we put out a survey, and then what did we find in our market study. So that's what's coming up in the April meeting. That'll open up for questions.
All right.
Thanks.
Anybody got questions for Mike? Comments? I appreciate you breaking it up into palatable parts. And I also appreciate, on this very, very cold day, the warm and sunny pictures reminding us what it's going to be like in a few months from now. So, any questions?
All I can say is that all these facilities take maintenance and upkeep, and that's a little bit lacking here, so if we're gonna own these things, we gotta put money into them to fix them.
I'd just like to add real quick that some of the maintenance items he talked about have been addressed already, and some will be addressed this spring. But some of those are so significant, some of the sidewalks, where we can adequately, address a few of those, but they get really costly, the per square foot, when you're doing little patches here and there. So a big project to take care of all of them, is what you'll later see. But we're going to do what we can and take care of the maintenance.
Now, when you replace a board, are you going to go all composite in, or is that what you're going to recommend rather than the wooden decking?
Well, with floating docks, there's basically three options. You've got a treated pine, which today's treated pine is not nearly as good as something you might have got 25 years ago because we're a little bit more restricted on the treatments we can use now. So pine today is really just the base level cost, but you're going to find a short life cycle. Composite's the next step up, and that's certainly a great option, especially for a municipal facility. And then kind of the next level up are your Brazilian hardwoods. There's a product called Kebony, which is actually a pine product with a very special treatment process. They're a little more expensive, again, a little nicer product. So there's three tiers, but I think the composite would be the way to go here. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're doing, like, you've got those, like a board that's got 50 screws in it already and it keeps popping out, can you replace them with a composite, or do you have to, if it's wood, if the whole thing is wood, do you need to stick with that, or are they compatible if you put them together with repairs?
In the case of the floating docks today, because of how much design life and how much life they have left, I would say you replace pine with pine.
Okay.
And make it last as long as you need it to.
Because you don't want anybody tripping and falling in the river. That would not be good. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
See you in a couple weeks.
See you in the spring?
Yeah. Maybe. All right. Next item is our overview of zoning ordinance, that update. And Jennifer's going to do that. And she's probably going to introduce Andy.
Oh.
Okay.
Jennifer Howland, Community Development Manager. It's really an exciting thing for somebody in my profession to be able to work through a complete master plan update and then also get a chance to do a zoning ordinance update. You've seen me here doing a couple text amendments every couple of months, so we've been keeping our 2007 zoning ordinance up to date. But it's time, after nearly 12 years, to really give an overall review of the full document with some consultation help. So that's why we're here tonight, just to introduce the zoning ordinance update that we're planning to bring to you at the next meeting for approval of a contract. So I just want to remind you of a few things. We did have our master plan updated in 2016, and there were lots of goals and objectives in there, and the zoning ordinance update can help focus on implementation of those goals and objectives. We had our Affordable Housing Task Force, which had some great recommendations that we can wrap into our zoning ordinance updates, specifically related to housing densities and parking ratios and other requirements that could help incentivize more affordable development. We had our parking study findings, again, something to wrap into the zoning ordinance as we start to look at our zoning, our parking ratios, and are they up to date? Are we making sure that each use has adequate parking but not too much? Are we considering alternative methods of transportation? And then finally, with your goals that are coming up this year for fiscal year 1920, I know that you've got the zoning ordinance on there, so this directly works on one of those goals. It also will focus on the affordable housing goal that you have, and it will work on the Washington Square goal that you have indirectly, if not somewhat directly, with all the different things we're going to be looking at. The unique thing about this zoning ordinance update compared to just the incremental text amendments is we're going to be looking at the residential neighborhoods, which is really exciting because I hope that we're going to show the residents that there are really relevant things for them to participate in all of our public engagement. So I'm really excited about that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Moore with Williams & Works. He's a contractor that we would like to hire.
Good evening. Well, I guess I'll start out by saying that I kind of wish I would have picked a warmer picture now after I'm a little out of touch here, but that's okay.
Sorry, Andy, the sun is shining there.
Yeah, exactly. There is sun, which we don't get to see a lot this time of year. So, my name is Andy Moore. I'm with Williams & Works, and as Jennifer mentioned, I'm here to just provide you with an overview of the process to develop a new zoning ordinance for the city of Grand Haven. The first question a lot of people ask is, okay, why are we doing this? Didn't we do this not that long ago? And yeah, you did. In 2006, Williams & Works actually assisted the city with a fairly significant process at that time. I participated in that process as well with the company in a little bit different level, obviously. And as Jennifer mentioned, the zoning ordinance has been amended quite a few times since that. So a lot of times we see as planners when there's a series of sort of short-term, we call them Band-Aids, but series of small amendments, it's a good idea every once in a while to go through and kind of recompile, reassess the entire thing to make sure that we're really working with a totally cohesive document that's had one cohesive staff and review committee working on it. Also, as she mentioned, the incorporation of those policies and recommendations from the Resilient Grand Haven Master Plan and the Affordable Housing Task Force report are going to be really key for us to focus in on those issues and make sure that we're implementing what the city desires to do. And then, of course, we also need to make sure that we're adhering to RRSD best practices so that we have a reasonably understandable and concise review process, and that we're working with the developers and making sure that we're meeting the steps that MEDC likes to see for that process. So the focus, again, Jennifer mentioned a few of these. We're going to focus our attention on these, not just these, but these are kind of some of the key topics for us. Affordable housing is going to be a big one with that task force report, and we get a lot of those questions nowadays anyways. User-friendly formatting, so again, making a document that's not a 500-page just block of text. We want this to be something that's very usable for the community, both residents and developers. So links, tons of graphics, colors, very usable, very interactive, very web-based, web-friendly type of format. Some newer concepts that we're seeing in planning, electric vehicles. A lot of communities are talking about accessory dwellings nowadays, so the granny flats or mother-in-law apartments or whatever you want to call them. Bicycle facilities, making sure that we're incorporating bike facilities into parking and site design efforts in the community, also community gardens and business incubators. As we mentioned, master plan implementation is always very big for us as planners. We like to implement the plans. We just don't like to talk about what's going to happen in 30 years, but we also want to do it too. So that's a big part of this. And then we're also going to include a variety of public engagement opportunities, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. So I'm going to briefly go through the work scope. This is about a 1-year process. It's going to be a major upgrade, but this isn't going to be a throw it in the trash and start over type of effort. I mean, the city spent a lot of time and really has a pretty solid ordinance from 2007. And so we don't think that it's something that needs to be completely dusted and gotten rid of and started over with. But again, this is an ability to go through on a comprehensive type of basis and review the entire document. So the first step for us is a review. So phase 1 is just, it's a lot of data gathering primarily. It's a lot of research, it's a lot of review. So we always start these with what we call a technical review or an audit of the existing ordinance, where we just kind of go through page by page, section by section, and just make notes of maybe things that are antiquated or they're maybe confusing, or we question if they're still relevant. Things like that. We highlight any potential formatting issues, formatting improvements, identify topics that could be used and maybe written or illustrated with graphics instead of just text and things like that. Make observations about readability and usability for the public. We're going to do a mobile tour in this step, where we're going to, us along with staff and any officials, are going to kind of just walk, bike, drive, ride around the community and kind of learn everything that we can as it relates to what we're doing. Now we're going to host some public workshops to get public input on this, and we'll come up with some interesting ideas to make sure that we're really engaging the community and the stakeholders. And the last step of this is kind of proposing what we call an annotated outline, where it's just a big outline of the entire document without all of the text filled in yet, so everyone can understand where we're going. And from there, phase 2 is develop or production. So this is where we just kind of auger in, and through a series of review meetings, we'll just walk through and write the entire thing cover to cover, using what we can from the old ordinance, which will be quite a bit. And we'll eventually develop that into a formal draft that is formatted. We usually don't put in the links until the end, but you'll get the look and feel of the document right away. And then from there, once we have a formal draft in place, we'll hold some testing and kind of stakeholder workshops to make sure that both residents and the development community and business community is comfortable, is familiar with it, they're understanding what it's doing and what some of the changes are. And the last step is to finalize it, of course. So either a planning commission review or a joint meeting with council and planning commission. Public hearing obviously is going to be required for this, and then finally there would be adoption by you all, and final delivery of the document. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, it's going to be a pretty long process, about a year, but we'll be working on it pretty regularly throughout the next several months. So from there, I'm just here to answer any questions, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Anybody have questions for Andy or Jennifer regarding the process we're about to embark upon?
I have some good news too. So we applied for a grant from the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation for 50% match on this project, and it's just under a $40,000 project. So we were awarded that on Friday.
All right.
Amazing. We're excited.
Yay.
I think the big part that they were really keen on was the affordable housing focus. So we had some funding from Housing Next funds that they have set aside, as well as some other funding sources. So that's really exciting to have them be a part of this, and sort of an interesting way of oversight and inclusion through the foundation and those people that support through that fund source. So very cool. We'll bring that to you next month too, to accept it.
All right. It won't be hard to do.
I'd just like to comment that I was there for the 2006-2007 effort, and I can appreciate how big of a job that was. And at the time I was on Planning Commission, and that was a wholesale replacement of an ordinance, and that is a very daunting task. So glad to see that we're going to try to update what we've got, because we did a pretty thoughtful job then. And as always, you miss some things, and some things just simply change with time. So every so often, you do need to do updates. So it should be a good effort. And I would like to put in my plug now, be the first maybe. I'd like to be on the steering committee that's going to be formed.
Well, I think that sounds like an excellent idea, Bob.
All right. Usually it's by whoever jumps in first.
Right, I can't think of anybody better.
Okay.
Well, just by two cents, I'm very, I also, I think as Andy, is that right? Put it, was a part of that process in 2006 and 2007, also in a different role. So I'm excited to see it start again. And I'm going to be keenly focused on the housing affordability components and eagerly looking forward to what we come up with to help folks in Grand Haven. So I'm glad the Community Foundation stepped up, and with a focus on that as well, that's very impressive. So thank you.
All right. You bet. I was going to say, I was part of that process too of the zoning, and I appreciate anybody whose eyes don't glaze over when you're working on the word by word, comma by period, that kind of stuff. So thanks very much, and we'll be looking forward to hearing more. Right, that ends our items on our work session agenda, so we have 5 minutes. Yes, Pat?
Could I quick cover what I've got under city manager
Oh, sure.
reports, and then we don't have to stick around for that tonight?
All right.
Oh, for
5
ice cream, you
minutes.
mean?
Might make it, we'll go have ice cream outside on the deck at Temptations.
Ah,
I think Julie just laughed.
What other country heard from?
I just wanted to point out that we've got an opportunity to do some community outreach, some 8-minute segments on a program that's going to be called Community Connect. And I've asked each one of you to sign up for a particular segment, and I've provided you with a little write-up. The first one is March 12th with Jerry, where she'll maybe give a general discussion. We're going to focus on our infrastructure because that's going to be a big push in 2019. And I got you each lined up for one of those dates. So if you can take a look at that and let me know if that's going to work for you. We're going to film them at Spring Lake Country Club. Again, they're 8 minutes short. I'll provide Dennis Threadgill with some ideas for questions, and I'll even give you the questions ahead of time.
Oh, that'd be helpful.
Wow. And any detail or specifics that you want to get into, just let us know, and we'll dig up any
All right.
interesting factoids or anything else you want to pepper that with. The idea is to get these shorts into social media so people can watch these periodically when they have time to learn a little bit about what's going on with your infrastructure and why we're considering placing something on the ballot. There'll be more on that. I was going to give this report after you already placed something, but we'll wait to find out about that. But there may be, it's a spoiler alert, Alex.
Fingers crossed.
You might be voting on something tonight about infrastructure, so we'll see how that goes. So thank you, I just wanted to cover that.
All right.
And that's all I had on my city manager report tonight.
All right, thanks very much. And so with that, we will take a 3-minute break. We're going to adjourn our work session and then reconvene promptly at 7:30 for our city council meeting. All right, I call to order this Grand Haven City Council meeting. It is Monday, March 4th, 2019. Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Vanessa?
Here.
Ruger?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Michaela?
Here. Our invocation this evening will be given by the Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer of St. John's Episcopal Church. Please remain standing after the prayer for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The Lord be with you. With your spirit. Let us pray. O Lord, our governor, bless the leaders of our land, that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations of the earth. To the president and members of the cabinet, to governors of states, mayors of cities, and all those in administrative authority, grant wisdom and grace in the exercise of their duty. To senators and representatives, and to those who make laws in our states, cities, and towns, give courage, wisdom, and the foresight to provide for the needs of all our people and to fulfill our obligations in the community of nations. To the judges and officers of our courts, give understanding and integrity, that human rights may be safeguarded and justice served. And teach our people to rely on your strength and to accept their responsibilities to their fellow citizens, that they may elect trustworthy leaders and make wise decisions for the well-being of our society, that we may serve you faithfully in our generation and honor your holy name. And Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down tonight upon those who hold office in this city of Grand Haven the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we thank you very much. We have some new appointments and a reappointment this evening. So Linda, would you read those, please?
This is to appoint David Lehman and John Reisinger and reappoint Rich Chapanek to the Construction Board of Appeals with terms ending December 31st, 2020.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
And support.
Been moved and seconded. Comments or questions on any one of these? We need to get our Construction Board of Appeals back in motion, back in service. Although they don't meet very often, but you got to have them there, so we appreciate that. So if there are no questions, then we will vote.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Ruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes. So so Linda's going to be down at the podium for the swearing in.
We'll start with David. David Lehman, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Construction Board of Appeals in and for the City of Grand Haven, County of Ottawa, and State of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
I do.
Reisinger. I, John Reisinger, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of the Construction Board of Appeals in and for the City of Grand Haven, County of Ottawa, and State of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
the reappointment doesn't need to be sworn in because they're sworn in from the last time. Okay, we are to the approval of consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes?
Your Honor, I have one, if I may, under new business, sort of a provisional change. If item A passes with the requisite number of votes, then item B would need to be to set a public hearing on a new off-premises tasting room for 7:30 p.m. on Monday, April 8th, 2019. I realized after the agenda was printed that a public hearing would need to be held in order to approve that state liquor license, and you'd need to schedule that ahead of time. So if item A passes, item B would be a somewhat adjusted from what it is there. Again, it would just be setting a public hearing rather than actually acting on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we will ask for a motion to accept the agendas as presented with that one change.
So moved.
Support?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If there are no questions, we will vote on the agendas.
Berger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes.
McCallum.
Yes. So it's just general business call of the audience. There's 2 opportunities at our meetings to address the public on anything that you have on your mind. So if you want to step up to the podium, let us know who you are, where you live, and make your comments.
Good evening, Your Honor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Kyle Van Streen, and I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Long Road Distillers. Over the past couple of months, you've had ample opportunities to get to know me and to see my face, but I wanted to take just a minute tonight to introduce you to my family. This is my wife, Jennifer, and our kids, Adeline and Austin, and this is their civics lesson for the night, so thank you for this opportunity. I know the meetings have a tendency to run a little late into the evening, so they're probably going to duck out at some point to get home and get to bed. But they're an important part of our story, and so I wanted them to be here for this. Shortly after I graduated from Calvin College and Jennifer from Hope College, we married and moved to the west side of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And there I worked as the supervisor of a youth employment program and then as the fundraising director for a Christian community development organization called The Other Way Ministries, where I served for nearly 10 years. In our time there and in my work there, we began to fall in love with the community and the people that live there. And after buying our first home, we became even more involved in the immediate neighborhoods surrounding our home. I was encouraged by a friend to join the board of directors of the West Grand Neighborhood Organization, and it was there that I met my friend and future business partner, John O'Connor. We quickly bonded over a shared passion for our community and a desire to see it thrive. And somewhat disappointed in the reactive nature of the neighborhood organization, we started a spin-off nonprofit organization called Welcome West to offer a proactive, positive approach to community revitalization. Our goal was simple. We wanted to tell people about the great things going on in our community and why people should want to live, work, worship, learn, and grow and raise a family there. We started a winter festival called Winter West that I'm happy to say celebrated its 9th consecutive year of bringing people into a local park in the middle of the winter when most people would simply rather just stay inside and skip over the season altogether. We coordinated a back-to-school parade for kids and families to come out and celebrate the exceptional educational opportunities that we have in our community. And we developed a Buy Local challenge to encourage people to spend their money locally and discover new businesses and organizations that were right inside of our neighborhood. Thanks to the patience, love, and support of our spouses and our families, John and I were able to invest and volunteer countless hours of our time into the community that we love, and to try to make it a place that was more welcoming for all people and full of life. With this in mind, one night we decided to start a business and put our money where our mouth was. That is why we started Long Road. Over the past 4 years, our team has grown, and we now employ over 40 individuals, many of whom live right in that neighborhood. These 3 people up here, this is my family. But these people, they're also my family. and we've grown and we continue to learn together. We couldn't be more excited about the prospect of joining your community. I envision my family spending a summer Sunday afternoon at the beach, followed by dinner at Long Road at the depot, and then an evening at worship on the waterfront. We're eager to get to work investing in this place. We're simply asking for a chance to do that. Give us a chance to occupy a portion of the depot for the next 18 months, and we can commit to you that we will pour into this place and this project the same passion that brought us together to begin with. A passion for communities where families want to live, work, play, worship, and learn. We're prepared to make good on our commitment to you, and we promise to be good stewards of this important place within your community. We're simply asking for a chance. Thank you again for this opportunity and for your thoughtful consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Boyd. I'm one of the co-owners of Aldea Coffee. I just wanted a chance to say a few things tonight. The first was I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has supported us in this process of pursuing the depot. We opened up Aldea Coffee in the Armory about 3 years ago, and since opening in this community, it's amazing what a community we live in. I knew it kind of existed, but I really didn't until we opened at the Armory and have got to know so many people around town. So for everyone on council here and around town who has supported our business and supported our aspirations for the depot, I just thank you so much for considering us in that process. We decided a couple weeks ago, as things have kind of moved along with this process, that we were going to pull back from it. Just looking at it, we just did not feel that ultimately, even though that is an amazing building, it was going to be quite the right fit for our business. One of the biggest reasons for that is just some of the uncertainties that come along with it, and also, it's amazing that spot down there is kind of like the focal center point of town, but there's so much going on in that area that I think we have some uncertainties how we would be able to just kind of maintain the atmosphere that we like. One of the most important things for our business is to be a year-round business. We've never really put a focus on the summer. We love it when people come in the summer, and that adds to our business. We welcome people into the community, but we are here for the community and here year-round for the aspect. We only close 2 days a year. That's Thanksgiving and Christmas. And honestly, I think if our families didn't demand that we be home on those days, we'd stay home too, because our customers are also our family, and we know that there's people in this community that count on us every single day to be open. With going into the depot temporarily and a possible construction period on the horizon, I'm not quite sure how that would affect our business. Some of those core people that I know that it may disrupt and they would not be able to rely on us quite as much. So, and then the last part of it too, which I think really has helped us kind of step away from the process, is to get to know the other businesses that were involved in that, and one of them is Long Road. I've got to know them in the process, and I think it is a fantastic business. I think that's just really important to be understood. They're bringing an amazing product to market and to people, and I think they're doing it in a way that is in demand right now, and I just know that I myself would be very excited about them coming to town. I think they'd add some just great kind of diversity to our business community here, as Kyle said, a business that really wants to be involved in the community as well. We get really excited about that. So I just wanted to stand up here and be one of the first to welcome them to this community, because I myself would be very excited about it. We, in our business, have also seen, which we're starting to detect a little bit of growth in people coming from the Grand Rapids area to Grand Haven because of some of the new opportunities and new businesses that are here in town. I think regionally that has some great potential for the community as well, and I would be very excited to see Long Road come and bring their following from the Grand Rapids area. I think it would only benefit our business, and I think we'd be very excited about that. So, any questions for me before I sit down?
Oh, this is just public comment time, so we appreciate it, Andrew.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
I'm Jared Kramer. You know me, I just said a prayer. I'm the rector of St. John's Episcopal Church across the street from the city. I'm also delighted that I grew up in Grand Haven. I'm a class of 2000 graduate from the Grand Haven High School. Go Bucks. In addition to those glorious parts of my life, I also have the joy of running a little side job that's called Whiskey School by Father Jared. I'm not joking, that's a real thing. Where I do whiskey tastings locally. I do them at Hennessy's Pub in Muskegon. I also am contracted out for various corporate and nonprofit events, walking people through the glories of well-crafted liquor. And it's a lot of fun. And during that time, I've had the delight of watching the craft distillery business in Michigan grow. I remember the first whiskey school I did where I finally included a Michigan whiskey to stand up against some of the best Kentucky and Tennessee whiskeys, and that Michigan whiskey absolutely was a favorite of the night even before people knew it was distilled right here in Michigan. The last whiskey school I did one just a few months ago that was all Michigan whiskeys, and there was not a single one that we tried that did not have something really to bring to it. As I've been watching kind of the lead up for this, I've seen some people ask, oh my gosh, what are people going to think when they go downtown and see a distillery in the depot? What are they going to think about our city? And so I'm a priest. I've got a kid. That's why I'm leaving it afterwards as well. I got to get home to my daughter. But like if I come downtown and see that, I would think, holy smokes, this is an awesome city. This is a place that wants to offer opportunities to all different sorts of people. This is a place that believes in the great rich variety that we have in this life that we live. And this is a place that I want to come and visit more. I want to spend more time in. I think that the city and people involved in the creation of Oddside took a chance, and Oddside Ells is quickly becoming one of the best businesses we have in Grand Haven, employing local people, bringing tremendous amounts of traffic downtown. And to me, this distillery would be a tremendous asset for our community. I feel blessed that they would even consider coming here, because it would add something that Grand Haven doesn't have right now in a way that I think would enliven and enrich us as a community. So I'd encourage you to really carefully consider their proposal and to give these people a shot, because if people want to invest in the city of Grand Haven with the amount of care that they clearly do, with an approach to business that they clearly have, this gives Grand Haven a chance to really be on the forefront still of a growing and burgeoning industry, which is just becoming a huge part of who we are in the state of Michigan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Bursma from 216 Grand Avenue. I support the Long Road proposal. I think it would be a remarkable and exciting opportunity for our city, and I encourage all the members of the council to give it full and positive consideration this evening. And what Jared said, amen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Taylor, and I'm the current chair of your Main Street DDA board. Mainly what I'd like to do is give us just a little more time to really consider this thoroughly. As the DDA, we were asked for input back in November of 2017, and we haven't been asked for anything since then. At that time, the space that was going to be used was really, really fluid, and we didn't know exactly what was going to be available, what parts of the building were going to be available, and we just feel that suddenly this is here. From what I understand, there were 3 or 4 people that maybe put their bids in the ring to do something with this. And again, at that point, we weren't asked for some input, but we really would like just a little bit more time. I mean, even if it's just 30 days to have this tabled right now. The distillery really sounds amazing, and I think I need to get into a different vocation or something, because the whiskey tasting thing sounds like super big fun. But really, I just feel, and many of our board members and stakeholders have reached out to me and feel that we need to just take a step and breathe and make sure this truly is 100% right for our community, given that it is at such a focal point right at the end of town. It could truly be amazing and right, but let's make sure that we do our due diligence and take the time to thoroughly investigate that.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. Anyone else?
My name is Sarah Rathbun, and I live at 209 Summit Street in Spring Lake. And I am the co-owner of the Baker's Wife in Grand Haven, Michigan. And I am here kind of embarrassed today that I completely missed this opportunity. I've been seeking a new commercial property for my business for the past 2 years. Looking on commercial listings and working with 2 different realtors. And I was just really surprised that this wasn't listed with other commercial properties. I learned about it just last week. And I, you know, I feel that if you would find it in your heart to allow for a last entry, I would surely love to come up with a proposal. We have a business that has been quite successful, growing slowly, but been very successful in downtown Grand Haven for the last 6 years. And I'm currently at a lease renewal point. I don't own my property, and it's really our goal to have a property that has adequate electrical, ADA accessibility, and air conditioning. And we service a market. We're a favorite with clients from 3 years old to 90 years old. There's no age limit to our customer base, and I would love to be given consideration.
All right, thank you much. Anyone else?
Sorry, I have to do this. My name is Kelly Larson. I live at 19373 Rosemary Road in Spring Lake. I own Sweet Temptations, Scoops in the front porch, as well as Fortinos. So I am an ice cream girl as well as an alcoholic. No, I do own a liquor store as well. So this is a very interesting comment for me because not many of you know that I was one of the proposals as well. And that was okay. There are some really great things that came out. Like Carolyn talked about, one of the things that concerned me was the fluidity of what we were going to do in the depot, and my proposal was very loosely worded because I didn't know what you wanted to do. I also was very concerned about the mechanicals in the building because to be able to move a food establishment in there would take a very large capital expenditure on my part, and I wasn't sure that I could make that back in 20 months. And there's been some conversation about, well, maybe you could be the front runner to have a lease after construction. I would just go back to what Carolyn said, and is the playing field level for everyone who did put their proposal out there in front of you? Do you know what you really want to do to the depot in 20 months? Is now the time to talk about it, or do we want to talk about it in 20 months? Let's do what's right for our community and take the time to make sure that we know what we're doing. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, members of the council, Sheridan Tongue. I'm a resident of Lake Avenue, 820 Lake Avenue, and I've lived in Grand Haven for 6 years. And I find it amazing there's not a place, we have such a fantastic waterfront, we don't actually have a place where you can just go for coffee or for a craft beer. And I'm just wondering, just seems like a brilliant opportunity to bring a company in. I don't know the Long Road Distillery people. I know Aldia, but I know they pulled out. I just think it's a fantastic opportunity for our community. We should be looking to the future. We should be getting more companies like this in. Like in the summer, there's tens of thousands of people that come into the city and they can't get a good craft beer, they can't get a coffee if they want to be on the water. And this seems like it's just a brilliant opportunity, so I fully support the application from the distillery.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Sharon Beam, 214 Washington, Boris Shoes, and past chair of the Grand Haven Main Street DDA. I just want to echo what Carolyn and Kelly both said. I was in on the ground floor from the beginning with the Main Street Board when we first started looking at redoing the waterfront stadium. And what a project that was. I didn't serve on the committee, but I totally supported as Pat, as the city manager, went around along with the mayors at the time, Jerry, and really made sure and thought through what that stadium was going to look like. And then to have the blessing of the $3 million gift from the Lynn Sherwood estate was just a true miracle. Now we've got phase 2 of what I perceive as the Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium. I don't look at the depot as being a separate entity from that. I look at that as being the gateway to the waterfront stadium. And I agree, in 2017, as a DDA chair, we were asked to take a look at it. But we had no idea what the plan was going to be. Is it going to be used as public space? Is it going to be leased out? And so I encourage you to slow down. We have one opportunity to do this. I'm not really sure ice cream, bakery, Long Road, coffee. I don't really know at this point what's going to be good in there until we reconvene this committee and really talk it through and think it through. I would love to see Long Road in here. You can ask Pat. Every meeting we have, I'm really about a distillery. Every building that comes up, could we put a distillery in there? We have vacant buildings in our district right now, other than the depot. There's other places for Long Road to come. If they really want to be here in downtown and they really want to invest in our community, if it doesn't happen at the depot, there's other fantastic opportunities here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Doesn't even have to be about the distillery. If anybody's got a comment about anything else, this is your opportunity. Going once, going twice, and then we will move on. All right. Thank you all for your comments and your participation. We appreciate it. Now we're on to the consent agenda. Linda, would you read those items, please?
To approve the special work session and regular council meeting minutes of February 18th, 2019. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $1,940.62. Accept the low bid and approve the contractor services agreement with Advanced Pavement Markings in the amount of $30,906.50 for citywide pavement marking and striping, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents, and accept the grant award agreement for the 2019 Downtown Flower Project in the amount of $8,831 from the William H. Young and Dorothy Young Mixer Field of Interest Fund of the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded on the consent agenda. Any comments or questions on any of these items?
I just have to say on C, on the pavement markings, that is a relative of my wife, and if you want me to abstain from it, I'd be glad to.
Okay. Does
I
anybody?
voted on it before, but
I was going to say, I think you voted on it.
but I leave it up to you guys if you want me to abstain for it.
Are you getting a kickback?
No.
Okay, then you're
Well, your
good.
wife.
No.
Okay.
I just thought I'd let you know.
All right. No, we appreciate that. Any other?
New stripes on your driveway or anything, we might be.
Well, yeah.
Does anybody have an objection to Mike voting on item C,
No,
even though he's voted on that in previous years and he's not?
Mike should vote.
I think so.
No objection.
Okay. I have no issue with it. But thanks for letting us know. Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Pat.
I just want to accent item D. I knew there wouldn't be a lot of discussion on it, but I think it's very worthy to recognize the Community Foundation and the William Young and Dorothy Young Mixer Fund for, again, stepping up and supporting our downtown beautiful annual arrangements. This is the largest grant they've given us thus far, since they've been supporting this, I think, for 5 years now.
Ever since we started doing the annuals. Yeah. So yeah, at least 5 or 6 years.
At the mayor's urging, actually, we got rid of the perennials and went with an annual approach, and they are magnificent, I think, each summer, and we have this fund to thank for it. So again, the Community Foundation making their presence felt in a very beautiful way.
Absolutely. I was gonna comment on that, and I still will, that it makes our downtown amazingly beautiful, and totally appreciate this continuing gift from the William Young and Dorothy Young Mixer Fund, because they do such a great job. And you know, the plantings we've had in there, I think even every year they've cut back on the number of plants needed because they've done so well. So there might be other opportunities for other decorations, you know, as far as this grant is concerned. So it's greatly appreciated, and thank the foundation very much. And also that Advanced Pavement Markings, I think, have done a very good job for us. And so we appreciate them, so before we even vote on that. So I think we're ready to vote, unless other people have questions. Okay.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. All righty, first item in new business.
First item is to approve an introductory resolution approving a lease agreement with Long Road Distillery to occupy approximately 1/3 of the main floor of the Grand Trunk Depot building from April 1st, 2019 through October 31st, 2020 at $12 per square foot plus utilities, taxes, and insurance, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
All right, is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support?
Okay, been moved and seconded. And Pat, do you want to
I would
have anything to add to what's already been said?
Yeah, I'd just like to set forth the progression of events that we've had here. And by all means, you all lived through it just as I did, so if I happen to get anything out of order, you'll let me know, I'm sure. But when we began working on the stadium, we began speaking with the museum about what their future intentions were for the space in the depot, and there was a clear consensus among the entire museum board and the city council that maybe something else could go there that was complementary to the museum and also added, complementary to the stadium and added an element downtown that wasn't currently there. And I think there's also agreement that we could probably get more people. You know, the museum's focus is rightly in the Akeley building where they've made a huge investment, and they felt that, you know, they were investing in a CARC facility, is that what it's?
Yeah, Community Archive and Research Center.
That place. So it was a very amenable decision, and at that time there was discussion on city council, well, what will we do with the space? And there was agreement that, well, we've probably got time, we're going to build this stadium. And as we were starting out, our stadium budget included renovating the depot space. We had set a budget north of $5 million for the entire project, and we thought we'd be doing it as a complete project. When we got the bequest from the state of Lynn Sherwood, along with a grant from the state of Michigan and Fifth Third Bank, we discovered we had enough resource to build what we've built there, which was really the major components: the stadium itself, the restrooms and concession area, as well as, what else? I'm missing one thing. The stage, I guess. Yeah. So what you see there is what we had enough revenue for. And there was a decision by the city council, by the steering committee, let's put a pin in the depot portion, come back to that later, let's get this part done. So as we did that, we left the stadium, the depot space alone. The depot space has sat mostly empty since then. We've not yet, there's been some transition at the Community Foundation, so there's been a little gap there as we've moved forward, and you know, our intent is to identify what's needed in that building for a permanent fix. The city council likes to do things right when it comes to our facilities. We don't want to do it halfway. Let's get it done and get it done well. So we've hired an architect, and I believe at your next meeting, she will be here to present the outline to what she believes needs to be done to that building to make it more of a public space in the 2/3 portion. And then 1/3 would be dedicated to a commercial user who could pay rent and help support the cost of the building. And this was discussed in 2017. It was, I believe, very clear in the public discussion that that was the direction we were going to head. We went out for ideas. We accepted proposals from the community over the winter, 2017, 2018. Very clear, it's going to occupy a third of the building on the south end of the building. The other 2/3 would be public, open space that could be used for a multitude of purposes, but complementary to the stadium and open to the public. 1/3 of the space, ideally generating enough revenue to make it a break even for the city. So, because we've got great experience with our community center where we subsidize affordable space for community events. And you're all well aware that we probably earn a little less than half of our expenditures in our revenue in that building. So we were looking at much the same thing with the depot, just another facility that we would have to invest significant monies in and not really get the return on the investment. And that didn't sit well with city council, it didn't sit well with management. So we said, let's find a tenant for 1/3 of that space. That was quite clear. I don't think at any time when we went out and sought those first proposals, that was what we were asking for bids on. That 1/3 of the space. And when you go into the space, it's very well defined. You've got the area up front where you can clearly tell that's the area we were talking about. I brought several people through and they'd look at it, said, yeah, this area down towards the chamber, down towards the Brass River is what we were thinking about renting out. That hasn't changed. We received 5 proposals. And then after this last summer, when it became clear we didn't have the resources ready to reinvest in the building, and it was going to be some extended period of time before we were able to get a renovation done, come up with the capital needed to do the renovation, I asked city council, ought we go out and seek a temporary tenant, an interim tenant, somebody between now and when we do that project. I'm not sure when we'll do the project. Optimistically, it'll be after the summer 2000 season. If we can raise funds and get our plans done, that would be a good target date. So that's why the end of this lease is October of 2020. It was intended to be an interim measure. We only went and sought confirmation of interest from the 5 that had originally put in proposals. Nope, you never said that it wasn't open to anybody else. You just said, let's ask those first 5 first. And you got 5 statements of interest back. And since then, you went through and did some prioritizing. And you know, it's all in the record, and I'm happy to share that with anybody, the details that you got into. And I think you got into substantial detail about pros and cons of the different features of each. And each one of the 5, you found some very positive aspects, but you came down to a couple, and now we're here considering tonight an interim tenant through October of 2020. Should you approve this, they would need to have their liquor license approved, which you would have to set the public hearing, so that would be the next thing on the agenda. And given the numbers that we're looking at and our experience with the utilities, should this lease get approved, I am supremely confident that you will at least break even between now and October of 2020. You know, we won't lose money while we're continuing to occupy that building. You know, if we go between now and then without a tenant, then all the money we pay in utility bills and upkeep and maintenance is just money you're spending to keep the building open, and the very sporadic use that we get in the building, you know, maybe covers $1,000 worth of revenue compared to some $20,000 in likely expenses. So I'm advocating a tenant, and I'm sorry that I left it up to you to decide who that tenant is. It's something that at any time you could just direct staff to go get a tenant, and we would bring you our recommendation. But I think this was a process. I think it was very well orchestrated. It's been on the agenda for 4 or 5 or 6 meetings. I mean, it's been on quite a bit. Recently got reported in the Grand Haven Tribune that the depot was, that the distillery was a front runner, I think was the article. And that was after Aldea Coffee had decided that they were going to withdraw. So you still have options available, and I have put this on the agenda tonight for your consideration, and I do recommend that we approve this so that we get a tenant in the building by April 1st. You know, I would get that revenue flowing beginning April 1st. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. It is time for comments from up here. So who wants to start the conversation?
start it off.
Go ahead.
I think I've got like 2 sets of comments. It's kind of funny. I haven't been nervous in this seat for a long time, and I think I'm nervous because I'm passionate about it, about filling the depot for a number of reasons. But I think, Pat, you accurately stated the process. It's been fairly open. It's been fairly transparent. And I think I would just add that from my perspective as one of the council members who's been pushing for a business to get in there to generate some revenue for quite a while now. I remember back, I think shortly after I was elected almost 4 years ago, we had a meeting at the depot. And we were talking about visioning and what are we going to use the depot for and how does it fit into the Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium process. And we're still asking that same question today. And I've heard calls today from our downtown merchants for more time. And at some point in time, I'm just ready to make a commitment, and I'm at that point where I'm ready to make a commitment, and I think we've got an awesome contender tonight. So I think the process has been open and transparent, and I think we've got a great applicant. And I've heard feedback from the community, in particular because, as you pointed out, this has been a Grand Haven Tribune, it's been on Grand Haven Informed, and received some phone calls and some emails, some in support, some not supporting the distillery. And I've been, I feel a little bit like the naysayers and the folks who have been throwing up concerns about the distillery coming in are a lot of our local businesses. And I feel like our local businesses should be open and inviting another business into the community to say, welcome to Grand Haven. We want you to be a part of the great thing we have going on here. And the applicant, Long Road in particular, has been at this for almost 2 years with the city, doing a dance with us to try to get approval. And they have stayed true, they have stayed honest, they've been upfront with us, they've handled themselves with dignity and integrity. They're here tonight, they've brought their family tonight. And I think that's a testimony to them and to their commitment to this process and to the community and to following the steps that we as the city laid out. We have, again, been open and transparent in these steps, and they've met every deadline, they've met every opportunity, and when someone works that hard, I think the reward is the finish line, that we should reward them with the opportunity on a short-term basis to be in the city of Grand Haven. And if after 18, 19, 20 months, or whatever the lease ends up being at this point, we don't like them, we can say, see you later. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think this is a great opportunity for them to be a part of our community, for us to do a little dance together and see how it goes. But I have no doubt they do an awesome job. And I've got some other thoughts, but I'll save those for a little bit later. Thanks.
All righty. Thanks. Anyone else?
All right, I'll talk. I was on the museum board until I got off in December of 2016. And I recall when the museum wanted to partner with the CVB because it was difficult for the museum to keep that facility open in the wintertime, and the city wanted a year-round tenant, a year-round occupation, something that would generate traffic and interest and contribute to the vitality of downtown all through the winter and everything else. And at that time, the museum tried to partner with the CVB to staff the building and share utility costs. And that vote was a 3-2 positive vote by council, and it failed because it took 4 votes. And I don't want to see that happen again with a new lease where we have 3 positive votes and 2 negative and it fails. So following that effort, when I got off from the museum board, we had a joint meeting with the council. That was truly the beginning of the end for the museum and that building. They had already begun to look at other alternatives for other places to have museum functions, such as the Township Building, Akeley Building, some other possibilities. And that was truly the beginning of the end for them because they wanted to not occupy the Depot Museum through the winter at their own cost without a partner. Okay, be that as it will be, the Depot became a vacant building after that, and it became what it is now, which is an empty building, and empty isn't good for any building or for any part of the community. So putting something in there is important to do. Putting the right thing in there is nice to do as well, and certainly we have opportunities to make changes, make mistakes, get it right. I don't think that we're going to get it terribly wrong, and I don't think we can do a whole lot worse than doing nothing. So we sat down with the museum board. One of my last meetings with the museum board, and also being on council, so I had two hats to wear that day. We talked about, well, what should be in that building? Well, it should be something that's just going to have activity, vitality, draw people in. Should have a component of it which is going to be open to the people of the community. It should also have some portion of it which is going to be probably the private sector. That was certainly no secret there. There was talk of putting a vendor in there or a business to share the space, but also keep a portion of it open for the people to use. And make the building active again and year-round. And so when we started talking about that, it became clear that the museum function was over. It wasn't going to be that anymore. What's next? What's the next best use? We look for different ideas, different uses, things that fit the community well, things that don't necessarily compete with other businesses or other activities or the community center as we expressed ourselves. And we came up with a list of things that we were interested in, not so much specific businesses, but attributes of activities. So we came up with a list of criteria. We had another meeting at a later time with interested community members to flesh that out a little bit more, talk about what might be there. We looked around the building, looked at the empty interior walls, looked at the outside of the building, what it looked like, what it meant to the community. And again, we reaffirmed that roughly a third to a half of the building should be rented to a private party, and the rest should be open space used for the public, used in a variety of ways which we didn't have good definition, nor did we have a specific amount of area or specific delineation of the interior, how it would be used and who the vendor would be. Although, given what the interior walls is, it's fairly logical how you would chunk it up. Following that, and it's been a full year now, we did get these 5 proposals, and they weren't necessarily the most original, earth-shattering, brand new, innovative, out-of-the-box proposals. They were things that were kind of familiar to us, but things that could be put in there, and things which would use part of that space and leave part of that space available for the public. And so we looked at those, and that's been a full year now. So, I mean, there's no surprises here. And to say that all of a sudden we're in a hurry to do something, I think this was a fairly dragged-out process. So then we were building the Lynn Sherwood Stadium, so we did kind of put things on hold, and we did put things on the slow track. But, you know, a year later, we're looking at some of the same ideas, and now I find it, I hate to say it this way, but I find it a little bit disingenuous that now all of a sudden we need to slow down and think it through carefully when we've had months and months and months to think it through carefully, and all of a sudden when the candidate has been identified, now we got to slow down and think it all through again. I'm not necessarily opposed to being cautious and deliberate, and I certainly do want to get to the point where we have 4 or 5 votes, preferably 5 votes, saying, yes, this is the direction we're going to go. And if that's what it takes, well, unfortunately, we do have to get to that point. But I would like to say that I think we've been deliberate. I think we've been open. I think we have not concealed this process from anyone. I think that everyone has had an opportunity to speak. We've had open meetings. We talked, just last fall, we talked a lot about the exterior of the building, how we wanted to preserve it. At least majority of us were interested in doing as little as possible the exterior. The internal uses were discussed even then. So we've been talking about this openly for months. I think that the sense of the council and what we were trying to accomplish is not news. I think it's old news. And so to say now that we are being rushed, and we were in a hurry, we're not being careful, I don't agree with that. I think we've been pretty deliberate and pretty open. I'm prepared to go ahead with this lease tonight. I think that I think we've identified a good, interesting party that's going to probably do well. And if they don't do well, we always have the option of not continuing that arrangement. And I think that it's something a little bit different, something that's not seasonal, something that's going to complement activities downtown. It's not necessarily the newest or most innovative thing that we could have come up with, but nobody came up with that idea. So this is where we're at with this. So I guess my thought here is that we need to put something in the building. It's not a good idea to have it just sit empty. I don't think this is a use that is going to preclude other uses or that's going to be forbidding for the downtown area. And I think that we have done our due diligence on this. I think that the fact that it's an evolving use and that it's an evolving situation is neither surprising nor distressing. So I for one, am ready to move on. I guess I'd like to hear what the rest of council feels on this. But we do have to come to an agreement.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
Don't go? It don't matter. I'll make mine short and sweet. You guys made it all long for me, so I gotta appreciate all the long talks and everything else and the applause for them. But owning a business in this town myself for quite a few years, I welcome new businesses, even competition for myself. I was one of the guys that started my own business up and competed against other people in town. And it was tough going at first, but you put a lot of hard work into it. And I know these guys have worked very diligently at their work. I was in Grand Rapids this weekend, and I had to take my brother-in-law up to the hospital and that, and he stayed at the Holiday Inn there. I just asked the clerk behind there, and says, "Hey, what about this Long Road Distillery?" And they told me, they said, "Oh man, I take my kids there." I says, "I buy my gifts there." They said their glasses are just phenomenal. You know, and it attracts so many people there. And if you guys have ever been onto the west side, I've been there for many years. My daughter lived up there, and I had friends of mine there. The west side was not the best side, what it should be. But over the last few years, I'll go up there now, it is actually, you go and it's turned around. It's actually the community there is opening up, and there's people, and it's getting to be more vibrant. It's getting to be what we want. Diversity, geez, you name it. I like it. It's Polish too, so it helps me a lot. See, my wife is Polish, but it's a great place to go. These guys do a fantastic job, and to bring them to Grand Haven here and have another good business to come down here to attract more people here, we need to get them more people into make our town more vibrant, to get them down here. And I said it the last time, is that the millennials themselves like to go around to different places. And if you go and you look at Grand Rapids and their distilleries and their breweries and all that up there, it's a very vibrant town now. It really has picked up a lot. And every place you go, you see more people coming. They want to come and they want to do things. Not everybody wants a cold beer. I mean, I don't know how many women just like to sit down and drink beer. They like to have a nice drink of some sort or whatever with their meal. But these guys do it in a first-class way. It's really, really good. So, and as Bob and Josh both had said, we need 4 votes here. And if our building is empty, it needs work, we don't have the cash. These guys are willing to come in, invest into our community, and work hard with it. So I'm all for it to start out with. So I'll make it to the end for me.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. We've invested a lot of money in the community foundation into the waterfront stadium. I want to make it family friendly, and I don't think putting alcohol in that depot is going to do that. I think there's other places downtown I can go, but putting it on the waterfront in front of everybody, and it's like you know, the depot is part of the stadium, and to put alcohol there, I'm not really interested in doing that. I've heard from people like Josh has, and I'm sure Mike has too, and the majority of people that contacted me are completely against putting alcohol on the waterfront stadium. So I'm going to vote against this. I don't feel it's the right place for it. I think we can do better. So I'm going to cast my vote no.
There's a reason that on the charter that if the city wants to lease its or rent out its own land, it takes 4 votes, not just a simple majority, in order to get that done. And so, I look back, and I think that that's important to note, because It isn't just by the skin of your teeth. You know, it has to be a strong feeling on council that this is what's best. We're talking about a piece of city property here, not just any piece of city property. This is prime city property. This is the building that was saved by a Save It ad in the Tribune because it was going to be knocked down. And Dr. Seibold, you know, was very instrumental in saying, well, you know, that's part of our history. We want to lose that building. And that has been part of our discussion ever since as to what to do with this building because of the historic nature of this building. And it's been sitting, you know, people have said, why don't we move it? Why don't we move it down by the train? Well, you can't really move it because of the way it's built. And, you know, it is where it is. It's at the foot of Washington Street in our downtown, kind of the focal point of our downtown. And so it is of huge importance and huge prominence there. And so that is why it is so important that the city council makes a good decision and a united decision on what should go in there. Now, I was part of design, you know, the design process and the construction process of the whole waterfront stadium. It was a 4-year process that we went through. And I'm very gratified with the support of the community once it was built. We've had nothing but rave reviews. And you know, the things that happened there, you know, we have the musical fountain every night. Thousands of people come. When we have special themed shows for the kids, it's packed out completely. There's worship on the waterfront that happens every Sunday night. That also brings in big name bands and thousands of people come. And we have to, you know, I for one have to make a decision. Is this where I want a distillery to be? Or do I want, because you can say all day it's family friendly and I bring my kids there, but it isn't family friendly for everybody. Some people, you know, don't want to see that mix. Some people are tempted by that mix and they can't withstand that temptation. And I can see, you know, bringing your kids down to watch Frozen and we'll watch the kids Frozen and we're going to go up on top. We're going to have a few drinks. Who's watching those kids that are watching Frozen? What happened to that family-friendly thing that we were going to do? And those to me are real questions. And that's why it's so important that we make a right decision here. This has nothing to do with whether Long Road is a good business or not a good business. I've heard all good things about them. I've talked with them. And I'm very impressed with them, impressed with what they've done, impressed with their interest and hard work in their community. But there are a lot of places in Grand Haven that, you know, there are several locations and I've told them, and they have looked around Grand Haven for some place where they wanted to invest, and they haven't found that place except for the depot. But it isn't the only place in town where a person could start a business. There are other places that are looking for occupancy, or even today or in the near future. So it's not the only place in town. We're not being unfriendly or saying we don't want them to be here. We absolutely do want them to be here. But it's like, it's only the depot. And for me, it is only the depot. This is the place that I want to protect. This is one, we were up in one of the One South Harbor offices, looking over the stadium space. And the depot and the stadium are one entity. You can't separate the two. And when the Lynn Sherwood gift came to the city to build the stadium, part of that was to put bathrooms in the depot so that it could be more ready to be a public space. And so, to me, it's one and the same, and it has to be thought of as that, and for the purpose of being public space. And that's why I'm thinking this is not the right fit. It's not about being anti-business or being anti-Long Road, but it's being pro-stadium, pro-family-friendly complex where everybody's going to feel comfortable and everybody's going to feel welcome. And so there are plenty of opportunities. And as far as the process is concerned, I think the process was fair, but I also think the process was confusing. To ask people to make a huge investment in this building when we're going to be hearing from an architect in a few weeks to find out what needs to be done in this building, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse to say, let's hurry up and write, sign a lease when we don't know what our architect is going to tell us what needs to be done. So, and some of this, some people look at a 20-month lease and say, well, I'll take a chance on that. Other people look at a 20-month lease and say, well, what's that going to cost me? What's going to happen at the end of 20 months? Do I have to move out? Am I going to work in a construction zone? Or, am I just going to say goodbye? And sometimes, if I had a business and I was going to make a big investment, I'm not sure I'd be real excited to rush into something like that, because that's a big commitment. And if it's how exactly do you do that? So those are the things that I look at, and I think I would like that opportunity as part of the original committee to that put for Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium, to get that committee back together and take a look at what exactly do we want to see in that space, because we haven't ever really answered that question. We've had lots of opportunity. Some of us have said, well, let's do some renovation in there, and other people say, no, it's the historic nature of it, you can't touch it. So if we haven't even decided that, what we put in there and how are things going to evolve around what's got to be built in there, I think that's a really tough question. It's really tough to be able to have somebody come in there and say, well, you can't touch that, and you can't touch that, and no, you can't change that, but good luck with your business. So I think that we're doing this somewhat in the wrong order, and I appreciate administration not wanting to, not wanting to occupy that building and rent it out to somebody to help pay the utilities. But I'm not sure that this is the right way to do it. I'm not sure this is the right order to do things. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to say, let's have some money coming in. But, has somebody not put in a bid because they were confused what happens after 20 months? And other people did because they thought, well, let's give it a shot. So I think that we need to slow down, get the report from our architect, see if we can figure out, where maybe some of this money is going to come from that we need to put into the building, and get ourselves in the right order. And like I say, I appreciate what's been trying to get done in order to pay some of these bills, but I think we need to do this right, because we're only going to get one shot at it. And like I said, I think we need to do this in the right order. And the right order for me is to hear what really needs to be done in this building, how much it's going to cost, before we set a course in one direction or another. I don't think it's fair to anybody to do that. So I'm going to vote against this lease for today. And my interest is getting our committee back together and really taking a look at what do we want to do, what direction do we want to take, and get input along that way, because we got to make the basic decisions before we do this, I think. So it is our building, and it's our responsibility what happens there.
If I may ask a question, Jerry, if I'm hearing right, and I just want clarification, I guess, on behalf of potential applicants, if the distillery is not approved tonight, it sounded like you just said you're not interested in any applicants until we know what we're doing with the building, which we've heard from the city manager isn't going to really take shape until about 2 years from now.
No,
So-
I don't think that's what he said.
Well, I think the reason it's a 20-month lease is because we don't know what we're doing with the building. We figure it's going to be at least a 20-month process. And maybe that's not what you're saying, so I was looking for clarification on that.
No, that's not what I was saying, and I don't think that's what Pat was saying either, unless I'm wrong, but I don't think it takes 20 months to figure out, to answer some of the questions that But I think we can answer within the 30 days or 60 days that if we get our committee back together again and look deeply into, try to nail down some of these things, I don't think that's going to take 2 years of sitting empty.
Well, if I may, say a couple words. My understanding of the city council's direction is that the city council wanted to decide who the tenant was going to be or what the use was going to be. If you want to delegate that to some other group, I'd be happy to go to that group, whether it's whoever it might be, but I really did get the feeling that you were going to make a decision as a committee of the whole and decide who we might lease that to. And so we've kind of gone about it that way. And I wasn't asked to specifically go to the DDA or the Harbor Board or maybe the Planning Commission. These are ones you could make an argument that they might have an interest in weighing in. The Historic Commission, for sure. I think all four of those bodies and the committee that worked so long on the stadium. So there's 5 different other bodies of people who would probably relish the opportunity to maybe weigh in on it and recommend a particular use over another. But city council, didn't ask for that. I did ask at the DDA at one point, or actually what happened was in 2017, we went out and asked for bids, and after about a 45 or 60-day period, we'd only gotten the 5, and the DDA said, can't we wait through the winter and see what else might come in and give us time to talk about this? So we did. We waited until February last year to open those bids, went through the whole winter. Now, as far as what we're going to do, we're going to hear from the architect in 2 weeks. I know it's a rather large number. We've had some preliminary discussions, so you'll hear what that number is, and we don't have the funding lined up. I don't have a finance plan yet. So I was just giving it my best guess. I really thought October of 2020 would be the most optimistic, unless City Council wants to appropriate the money directly. And if City Council said 30 days or 60 days from now, yes, we have the money, and there are a number of things you could do to make that money available. If you chose to do that, you would need to hire an architect to do the design, get that firm on board. It would be very ambitious to try to do it this fall. Given people's workload, I don't know, you guys probably know the construction trades as well as I do. It would seem that going from now till the fall to actually be starting work on the building this fall would be ambitious, but we could probably do it if I had the money, and I don't. So knowing that we need to do that fundraising, putting it off 1 year from them was the most optimistic outlook that I had. I thought October of 2020 was optimistic to try to, start tearing at the building. And it could go any number of ways. There's many things that are beyond my control. One is you guys are in charge, so you're going to tell me which way we're going to do it. Another one is I don't know where the money's going to come from right now, but we've been successful in the past when we all pull together and put our mind to it and the community gets behind it. We've been successful, so I think we probably can be successful there. The idea of doing it in phases, I was talking to Denny about that, maybe splitting it between a couple of years and doing some of the work 1 year and other work another year, and so maybe you do want to decide on a longer term tenant and talk to that potential tenant about this interruption that we're going to have at some point. And maybe it's 3 interruptions over a 3-year period as we can afford it. There are a number of different ways beyond my control. Nobody can predict it. And some will say, well, that's not very precise. It's like, well, it's not. It's not a precise world. We react to we deal the best we can with the conditions that are presented to us. So I'm confident having somebody in there would be a good thing. And I hate to see it go another summer empty like it did last summer. It would be good to have somebody in there. So if we can find somebody willing to take a risk, and it is a risk, the lease is very clear, through October 31st, 2020. It doesn't have any other, and anything else has been implied by some folks that they think they can stay longer or they can't stay longer, or it's a big risk or not a big risk, or I'm willing to take that risk or I'm not willing to take that risk. That's not something that we tried to influence. It's just that's the date. And come October 31st, 2020, it's possible a tenant would be able to stay in there. I'm watching what Oddside Ales is doing. They're completely gutting the inside of that building. They got the coffee shop open while the brewery was still running. Now the coffee shop's open, the brewery's running, and they're in full construction mode. I think people are sitting there drinking coffee or beer, depending on which side of the plastic you're on. And they're probably having a good time watching the thing take shape before them. So we may be able to do the project while the building's occupied, but that remains to be seen. It depends on the tenant and the actual structural things that need to be done. And most of what we have to do, we're not taking all the floor out, we're not taking the entire roof off. So it's possible things would be able to continue if that's what city council decided, but this was very clearly meant to be an interim arrangement, just to get somebody in there for the next 2 summers, while we will likely be trying to come up with the right future for the building as far as what needs to be invested in the building. And that's a considerable undertaking, you know, to be able to raise that kind of money. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me speak.
All right, thank you.
I would say 2020 is more realistic because we don't have the cash. We don't have the cash flow to take on another building right now. There's no way possible. And to keep going back to the well, as I call the great citizens of Grand Haven, keep going back to them and asking them for donations for things. You know, it's nice. I love them. It's great that they do these things that they do. But it's our building. We should figure out a way, if we have an opportunity to get a tenant in there to help us out. I have to agree with you 100%, Pat. I really do. We just don't have, we have too many other things on our plate. We have infrastructure we have to take care of. We have other things that we need to, needs to be upkeep and maintained.
Well, I think that a lot of the work you're going to find that we're doing is either going to be mechanical or it's going to be cosmetic. I don't think you're going to do major structural work to this building. I know this building pretty well. I was on the museum board quite a while. I've been in just about every part of this building at one time or another. And I think that the work that's going to have to be done, potentially while it's occupied, is manageable. And I think that from the sounds of things, the Long Road Distillery folks have seen this before. This is not a surprise or not new to them. So I think that it's probably something that could be dealt with pretty much as it comes. So I think reasonable accommodation there is possible. I would like to see that nothing is done to the exterior of the building. I've been one of those who's been very firm about the historic nature of the building. And I think that's understood, at least I think I've been clear. But as far as operating out of that facility while work is being done, I don't see that as being insurmountable. Maybe they have thoughts on that, maybe not, but I don't think it's a surprise that it would be happening. There again, you know, I think having the building sit empty is not good for the building, not good for that part of town. And having some kind of activity there and opening it up for use is certainly better than what we have today. I guess I would ask another question though, and ask directly of the mayor, who is this particular candidate just simply not something would be considered? If we vote tonight and we vote 3-2, this will be done. It will have failed because it didn't get the 4 votes. If a 30-day hiatus while other parties have a chance to weigh in would potentially allow this tenant to be considered and passed, then maybe the only realistic thing to do is to postpone for a month. But if this is simply just a way to delay so that we potentially make them go away, then I don't want to do that either. So I'd be willing to postpone for 30 days if the outcome could be that they would be given fair consideration. But if what we're really doing is trying to get them to withdraw, then I'm not interested in going there.
No, I would not.
You would not what?
I wouldn't consider it.
You would not consider this particular tenant?
No.
Okay, then I'm done.
Okay.
Well, I've saved a few more comments in a desperate attempt to get them approved, so I'll share those now. I think, and Mayor, you aptly stated it, in the face of all this chaos and indecision, I can't imagine that anybody would want to take up residence in a city-owned property, let alone the depot. And yet, we still have Long Road. They haven't gotten up and left yet in the face of all this chaos. And yeah, perhaps we've got the cart before the horse as far as the design goes and what the long-term plan is for the building. I think you are correct on that one, Mayor. But here we have a tenant, even though we don't know what we're going to do in the long run, and there is absolutely no guarantee that beyond October 31st, 2020, they're going to be in there. They're still willing to pony up $100,000, $200,000 to invest in that building. And as they've said to me, and I'm sure to all of us, they're interested in a long-term relationship with the city, and they would like to help with the fundraising to redo or to bring the train depot up to today's building codes and safety features so that the entire community can use it, not even just the 1/3 that they're in. So they're passionate about the community and they want to be here. And before I have Ashley put up one photograph that I wanted her to put up, my one thought, and I guess a desperate attempt here, because I think the main resistance that I've heard that, you know, is reasonable to some degree is the worship on the waterfront folks and Sunday evenings. And I'm just wondering if Denny or Jerry, because you both mentioned worship on the waterfront, if the applicant, and I'm not going to ask him tonight, I'm just asking you guys, or asking them at the moment, if they were to say that they'll close down for those 3 hours that worship on the waterfront is there, would you guys vote in favor of them?
You know what? I'm really getting a little tired about being challenged by if you do this, if you would do that. I don't particularly appreciate it. I have not just sat here in a cocoon waiting to cast my vote about this issue. I've been on the street, I've been talking to people, I've been contacted by numerous people, including 2 former mayors, and a lot of people on the street, and they say, we don't think this is a good fit. We do not think that alcohol is a good fit for the depot. This was a family-friendly environment of the stadium. But we want kids to be comfortable. We want all parents to be comfortable, no matter if you're at Worship on the Waterfront, if you're bringing your kids to Frozen. I've been talking to people. I've been hearing from people. I've been hearing from, there's not a lack of, you know, if you just want to have a drink, there's no lack of alcohol in the streets of Grand Haven. But to say challenge, you know, if we do this or if we do that, I don't think alcohol, if you only come out and say it, I don't think alcohol is a good fit for my vision of the depot. This takes 4 votes.
Yep.
And I'm going to be a no vote because I think we can do something that's better. I think if we give it some time, we can find a better fit. There's plenty of space in the city of Grand Haven, but people have said, well, you're not being very good to us. Well, there's a lot of locations in Grand Haven where you can do business. This is not the only piece of property. It is the only piece of property at the end of Washington Street that belongs to the people of the city. And there's quite a number of the people of the city who do not like this mix. They love the stadium. They love the depot. They don't want this distillery to be in the depot. And that's where my vote is. And I'm not going to bargain that because that's been my position all along.
Fair enough. No, thank you. You answered the question. I don't know if, Denny, you feel the same way. It doesn't matter whether they close down at Worship on the Waterfront or not. It's just alcohol and you don't want it there. Is that?
That's correct. I do not want alcohol in the depot.
Then I think that, yeah, echoes what Bob said. Well, I'll give my last pitch, although it's going to fail miserably. Actually, if you could put up the photo for me. I had the opportunity, I think whenever there's something up for discussion and we're debating on, you know, whatever it may be, I think firsthand experience is key to everything. And I had the opportunity to take my family down to Long Road over the weekend, and we had dinner there, had a marvelous time. And one of the things that caught my eye the minute I walked in was this shelf right here. It's on the left-hand side of their distillery. And Mayor, you commented that we've got a premier building at the end of Washington Street, and it deserves a proper tenant. And I can't think of any more of a premier tenant than one that has won this many awards for their product. And if anybody had a grudge to hold against these guys, funny enough, it'd be me, because they put a business that I was in Grand Rapids out of business because they did such a phenomenal job as a distillery. So in the face of all that, I know they're going to fail miserably today. I'm sorry it's not going to happen, guys, but I wish you were here because I want that right there in a premier location in Grand Haven. So thanks, that's all I got.
I think we're ready to vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
McHale?
No.
We will pass over item B because it's been rendered moot and move on to item C, is that correct?
Yep.
Next item is to adopt by department for all funds amendments to the fiscal year 2018-19 city budget for the various city funds as presented by city administration. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. And Jim's stuck in the back, in the row back there. Howdy.
I want to get right out in front of this and let you know that there are some concerns with this budget. We are proposing a budget that has a deficit, operating deficit. Over the past 14 years, since I happen to look, we've come to you with deficit budgets, deficit operating budgets 4 times, but we have never come close to have that operating budget put the city in any kind of a fiscal problem. So the good news is you have a solid operation. You have the ability to adopt this budget, amended budget, right now, as it stands, and we will continue on. The reason I ask for the adoption of this budget is so that I can have a number at June 30 to be able to start figuring out what we're going to be able to afford next year. So that's really the story, I think, that needs to be told here, is that it is a deficit budget we're bringing forward to the council for the general fund. But all other funds, all funds are in a positive fund balance position for the year. You're still in good shape.
Is there a particular deficit area or a?
There are 2 reasons for,
Okay.
the 2 major reasons for the deficit is because we did not have information at the time that we wrote this budget last year from the state that they were going to change rules on us on one item, which was the change in law on personal property, which started back in 2012. And it took them 4 years to finally come back to the cities and send some money forward to the cities. That was not last year, but the year before, about $375,000. Last year, they changed the rules between the first year and the second year, and we got an amount of about $912,000. Now, these dollars were brought back to the city because the state had required that we would no longer have personal property taxes on many properties, business properties. So this was the way the state was going to come back and say, oh, you'll get held harmless, it won't be a problem. So when I called and said, hey, I got a nice check this year, am I going to have the same thing the following year to come? We don't know was the response. And I didn't look at it closely enough as far as I'm concerned to hedge my bets. So I estimated $912,000 as revenue for that line item, and it came out closer to $300,000. That's $600,000 of the deficit right there.
Yep.
Another $300,000 came in related to reimbursements that we received last year that should not have been included as revenue in this fiscal year. Normally, and I don't know how I missed that one, but normally when I write up the reimbursements budget for the following year, it's always at $1,000 because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to give you a budget that does this kind of reduction. Those are the 2 major reasons, and I accept those, and sorry about that. I guess I messed up. But at least those are the reasons. I think the thing that is more important is that we presented an operating budget without those 2 items. We had an operating budget that's within $100,000 of the original numbers you came with, or that we brought last year. So if we look at those 2 items as being the issues of why there's the deficit this year, the operating deficit for this year, okay, I'll take my lumps on that, but I think you need to recognize that the whole city's look financially is very strong and can weather this particular storm very well.
So do you, well, I was gonna say, do you think, but we don't know what the state is gonna do as far as that the 300,000 or 350,000, whatever it was, that number, is more realistic as far as property taxes than the 900,000 that we got the one.
That's one of the problems about forecasting is that you
don't
really
know.
don't know what's going to happen until it does.
Right, right.
So I don't have an answer for that. I actually called them up again today to see if there was any kind of information they could give me. Nope, we don't have any information yet. We'll probably know in June or July. Well, how do I run a budget when I don't know what the number's going to be?
Right.
The most conservative way to do it is to say it's zero. And then when it comes in, oh, well, we've gotten an influx.
It's a
Great.
windfall.
But that's not a good way to manage your operations either. So in this case, this is one of those times where I guessed wrong.
Well, hey, gotta guess something, right?
Once in a while.
When we first started out, when we talked about the budget last year, we were looking at it over 32% fund balance. And then I argued for more road work, and I think we got down to 28%. Is that what we did when we, around that area for a fund balance? So even with this, we're probably still going to be over 25, right?
We're still above the 25%.
Yeah. So we're still in good shape.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're
I would
in great
not say
shape.
that publicly in front of this gentleman without being accurate on that statement.
But we're in great shape. So we're okay. I mean, the auditors recommend 11%, and we want to do 22% because of Grand Landing, and we're over 25. So we're still in good shape. We're not in a deficit at all. We still got a really healthy fund balance.
It's not just a good shape for today and tomorrow I'm going to bring some other bad news. What I'm seeing from what I can forecast, I don't see any problems for at least 5 years, to be quite honest with you. There's going to be moving around of money in order to perform those things that City Council directs us to get through. But I don't see that problem. I don't see a financial problem for the city of Grand Haven that we can't overcome.
Okay. The other thing is, you don't know what we're getting right now, and what if we took our fiscal year and moved it to the state's fiscal year, July to August? I know Marquette did that, and they said it's easier to forecast the budget that way. Would it be easier for us to forecast it? It wouldn't. It wouldn't make any difference.
No, it doesn't really make any difference because it's going to be uncomfortable for that year that you make that change, and then you're going to be matched to the state's timing as far as that goes. It would be a September 30 fiscal year if we were to go to match the state.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with this particular issue
But
at all.
wouldn't we know then what the state's, by that time, wouldn't we know what the state's
No,
going
we
to give us?
would not,
we
because
would
that's
not know.
exactly the
Okay.
problem I have today.
Okay, all right, Jim, just asking.
No, it's good questions, but
Okay.
the time of our fiscal year end is not the question. It's overall looking at not just that 1 year, but over a number of years. What are we looking? What are we going to see?
Okay, all right, okay.
I think a part of this also is that the state has never fixed municipal finance, never fixed the way that tax revenues are shared, never fixed the way that we may tax locally. They took away the personal property tax and gave us a partial solution which didn't pan out. I think that a lot of the problems we're seeing today, whether it's questions of prediction or questions of making do with what we've got, have been poor management by the state. I think that whether it's the revenue sharing debacle of them not sending back the money that was collected locally, or taking away the personal property tax and not allowing it to be replaced adequately, those aren't things that we did. Those are things we've had to react to, and it's been difficult to react. So the fact that you're playing a guessing game with things the state has done to our local finance, I'm sorry that's happened. I'm glad that we've been able to react to it. I'd have to note that a lot of other communities are probably in a lot worse shape. We were never as dependent on the personal property tax as many other communities, so the impact on us hasn't been as severe, and we're able to react to this one and absorb it. And as you say, we're still in pretty good shape. And I'm sure that next year, when we start looking at our budget in the next month or so, we will see more conservative assumptions in terms of what we get back from the state. Lessons learned.
Well, I should comment so that my no vote has an explanation. I think you've done a marvelous job. I will say, though, that anytime we're this short, even though it wasn't necessarily in your control, a unanimous vote on a $800,000 shortfall isn't really the best way to go overall.
I'm kicking myself a
I
lot
know you
more
are,
than
so
you
I'm-
ever will.
Yep, and you're doing a great job, and I understand a lot of this is out of your control, but that's going to be my vote, and I just wanted to explain that, so thank you, Jim.
I guess, Josh, just if I could just respond to that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. If you
If
got
I could
it.
just respond to that briefly, if everybody here voted no, then what? We would just not amend our budget? And then what?
Well, we can
It's kind of
see what would happen.
it's kind of a symbolic vote, but if we all did
Well,
that.
I suppose in practical aspects, it'd probably tip the city to start making some drastic cuts for the last 5 months, which we don't necessarily want to do, but it could be something that we could look at. Is that about right? Because our budget goes through till July 1st,
June
31st.
31st.
right? We could make some significant cuts to offset some of that $800,000 shortfall if we had some drive
yeah,
to it.
If I may,
Yeah.
first off, Jim is always, humble and dutifully hard on himself, which is very much appreciated. It is, my responsibility to deliver and maintain a budget for you guys, so I appreciate Jim consistently stepping up, and he does it more than just standing here. He's in here very, very, very long hours, agonizing over all the detail to make sure he gets it just right. So he's bringing the exact right information to me, and then him and I talk about, what does this mean? He misspoke a little bit. I hate correcting him on the fly, but we don't have an operating deficit. If we didn't transfer the money out that you're transferring out for other purposes out of the general fund, we wouldn't have a deficit condition. Transfers out are nearly $2 million that you're taking for streets and public improvement fund and housing and DDA and to pay the debt for the campus project and the meters that we put in a few years ago. So there's a lot of money that isn't operating the city. I mean, for revenues coming in on your general levy and what it costs to run the city, you're very much balanced even with this bad news. Your expenditures so far this year and what's being projected is we're better than $100,000 under what we initially set out to spend. The big hit came, you can vote no, and I can call Governor Whitmer and say, could you send that extra 600 over? And there's some things we just can't fix in the revenue side of things. We're just over $1 million lower in revenue than where we thought we were going to be due to estimating. At this time last year, we estimated where we thought we were going to be. We told you where we thought we were going to be, and we were off. And it does happen. So it's I sure do prefer coming to you and saying, look at the surplus, which is what we have done out of the last 14 years. I think 10 out of the 14 times come in and said we collected more than we thought we were going to collect, and we spent less than we thought we were going to spend. And it's a constant pressure on all your department heads to conserve dollars and find ways to cut back and scale back. And do we really need to buy that? Because they don't like coming here and asking you guys for things that you determine are frivolous, AKA concrete mixer, that sort of thing. I don't know if you remember that one a few years back, or a gator.
The gator. I remember the gator.
So they're very, very reserved and conservative, and so is Jim, and so am I. We are very actively, the department heads are sitting down and racking their brains. How can we come up with ways to fix this? Now, I want to build on a little theme here. You are so much better off than 90% of the municipalities in Michigan. The recession hammered everybody because of Proposal A. There's an article in today's, I think it's Detroit Free Press. I'll try to find it and send it out to you. And it's about revisiting Proposal A this year. Proposal A capped everything, and we're all pretty familiar with how that cap worked with taxable value. Well, when revenues tanked and went down, that was never anticipated under that model. So we're just getting back now to our 2007 revenue levels. And meanwhile, healthcare and pension and everything have been shooting up. And we're trying to hold things together where you expect them to be with fewer people, and we still have less money than we had 10 years ago. And it's because of this, what do you call it, structural situation we have. It's the way we're structured. We can't do anything about it. The state has capped what we can collect, They've cut back on our revenue sharing. They've eliminated our personal property tax. And every time we turn around, they're telling us to do more and threatening to fine us. And it's not a wonderful environment in which to work when you're just trying to provide the basic services that your people are willing to pay for. But the state, for the popular vote of the day, jumps out and says, we're going to vote yes to cut everybody's taxes. Cities, you can't levy as much tax, you got to cut back. And so we do, and now we're struggling. But as Jim pointed out, we got at least 5 years. We got more sunlight on the horizon than shadow and cloud. Grand Landing, downtown TIF, these things are going to roll off. And when they do, that money comes back into your treasury. And that's going to sustain you probably going out 10 years. And after that, those projects are going to come back on the tax rolls fully, at which time you'll be appreciating those dollars every year. So Jim has meticulously set up a very clear and favorable financial position for us. And if you look at all those other funds, general fund's about 10 million. What's the total budget with all the funds?
Of all but the BLP, it's $70 million.
So 70 million. We're only talking about 10 million here. That other 60 million is all positive.
All in good shape.
All surplus right now. So we are, and he's presented that. All those numbers are here. If you vote on this budget tonight, we just tend to focus on general fund because that's your most discretionary fund.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend most of our time on that. But overall, when I went through it, and I was almost as stressed as Jim is. And when I got down to all those other funds and I saw that, I thought, boy, I'm really focusing on about 15% of this overall picture. And it wasn't our fault. We thought we were going to get $900 and some thousand in return for our personal property, which, by the way, would not have been full restoration of our personal property loss.
Oh, no, it's not.
No,
If they would have just left it alone. And by the way, employers in the state of Michigan today are still paying just as much in that tax. It's just got a different name now. It's the Essential Services Local Government Reimbursement Authority Fund or something. They don't know how much is going to come out of it, but people are still paying just as much and doing just as much paperwork. So that was a disaster. Eliminating the personal property tax, nobody cut. It all is still there. It's just being redistributed. It's all going to Lansing now. They're doing what they do with it, and they're paying about 100 bureaucrats to futz with it, and then they send it back out to everybody, and we don't know what we're going to get. And they've got a whole bunch of jobs in this new bureaucracy they created. Very inefficient, very awful way to do local government, and they never really consulted with us about it. It was just the thing to do. I'm sorry to get on my soapbox. You all lived it just like I did, but this is the upshot is across the state tonight, people are sitting in chambers just like this one, struggling with, what are we supposed to do? We thought we had that money coming in, and now we don't. Well, fortunately in Grand Haven, Jim set us up, you've set us up in a preferred position, so I think we're very safe and comfortable going forward with this, and on April 15th, we'll be having our annual budget work session, and we'll get into some of those scenarios that give us a nice stable future, and we'll go out 5-10 years and show you what it looks like. So you all feel very comfortable when it comes time to vote on next year's budget. Thank you. This has been a tough thing. We've been thinking about this presentation for about a month now. And Jim's been in here, if he's gone by here, he's been in here every Saturday and Sunday, double, triple, quadruple checking things to make sure we got it right. So you can feel very confident that these are good numbers.
Thank you, Jim.
There's one thing that I think is really important, and thank you for, and that was the directive a couple years back to start looking at the city and what is sustainable. The ability to take an action now is far greater than it was 2 years ago. If I would have seen this 2 years ago, I would have been even more concerned than I am now. But because you've already started us on that track to make Grand Haven sustainable, which means don't mess up in this, when the things go down, make sure we have coverage somewhere. We have coverage. And so that's the point that I guess I'd like to say thank you again to you and city manager about that fact. We talk about sustainability all the time. And you do have some very large potentials coming down the pike in 2022 and forward that are going to produce dollars for infrastructure purposes as you requested and that kind of thing. That's already been shown to you. Take a look at the last graph on the debt service report I did a month ago, and you'll see it. It's right there. The whole process is right there. So that's why I am not nervous at the outcome. I am embarrassed that I missed it, but I'm not nervous about the outcome for the city at all.
Yeah, but you're not a prognosticator as to what the, you know, that the state is gonna send us from a year to year on a process that they don't understand what they've done to us. So, they,
Yeah, I'll just follow up. I apologize to Jim. My comment should have been directed to Pat, and I'm going to stand by my comment that, you know, if I had one of my guys come to me and I put him in charge of budgeting for a project and he told me the homeowners agreed to pay a certain dollar amount for that project, and at the end of the project, with 3 months left or whatever the duration is, and I'm sorry, every analogy breaks down at some point, but the idea is they said, oh, you know, I thought they were going to pay $1 million for that, but they're only going to pay $800,000. Well, I got to say something to them. I've got to say, you know, employee, you did a great job. You saved us some money here, here, and here. We've got 3 more months to finish this project. Let's see how much more we can make up in that loss before we get there, based on what we were anticipating from the commitment that our homeowner made. So, and I understand that's an analogy, it breaks down. And I look at, you know, you've got 5 people up here. I'm not saying you're doing a great job. If I had an ability to give a grade, it'd be like a 90%. But to say that it's 100% when we've missed it, I just can't do that. So I appreciate that everybody else will vote in favor of this, and I think collectively that's the right thing, but I think I need to vote no. So there you go.
Jim, this ain't the first time since I've been on here that we came into a small little snafu sometimes. I think we happened, 2004 or 5 or somewhere around there. I think it was one time when Roger was here.
I try not to remember those.
Yeah, but I remember it, and it wasn't, like I say, you steered the boat good, and what can I say about the state? I mean, I sit up here every time, along with Bob, we can say all we want about the state. Can't never trust them for anything, so, but hey, foo-foo happens, and we know how to handle it. We have everything in order. It'll be taken care of, and this has been, it's a good for us, so we'll be all right. Thank you for your hard work, though, and I appreciate your staff and everybody working hard. And I know the directors and everybody else working under Pat and Ed are going to work hard to try and figure out something else to work where they can do it. We did it before. We had made adjustments before. It's not the first time, like I said. I'm not worried.
no, it's, you know, you make oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Okay. I'm not worried at all either. I think, you know, you set it up with a good fund balance to cover these kind of emergencies. And that's what those fund balances are for, and they're taking care of it. And to me, you've done a great job. So don't kick yourself in the rear end too hard, Jim.
Oh, all these things, you know, I appreciate all you do. I appreciate that the city is in good financial shape, and everybody's budget gets a little hiccup every once in a while, but you get through it. You make adjustments, and you get through it. And you know, we're not in any kind of duress or whatever. It's one day at a time, and I think we're a pretty good community, and we take good care of our stuff. So appreciate what you do. And I think we're probably ready to vote.
Yes.
Bruger?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Caleb?
Yes. All right, next item.
Next item is to approve the fiscal year 2018-19 amended capital plan and the fiscal year 2019-20 proposed capital plan for budget development purposes. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So, is there do you want to say anything about this, Jim?
This is the product of so far about 5 months of the department heads and me and Pat getting together, trying to figure out what it is we are doing as far as the capital side of the operation, not only for this year, but also the basic setup for next year. That's why the document is very important for 2 reasons. One, we want to make sure we get on the record what it is you're looking for this year and next year. And then we also want that future look. Where are we going? Is it sustainable? How is it going to be sustainable? I'll say one thing that the state's helped me out with again this year, and that is not only do they want you to do a capital plan that shows you the costs, they now want you to show where you're going to get the money, the revenue, for those costs, to cover those costs. So it's a whole new world out here. The state is doing a wonderful job of standing on my back, and I really appreciate it. That's the nature of finance right now. That's the nature of the business. I do believe that we have got everything that we know of in this budget plan, I think, or the capital plan, and I think if there's anything we're missing, that's what I really need you to make sure that you let Pat know that if there's something you don't see here, let's make sure we either find it or put it in. That's really critical to me, because the budget process is merely a plan, and it's a direction of where we're headed, and so that's what I'm looking for. And again, this is the same time of getting a direction from City Council that's concrete, so that I can figure out June 30 numbers and then use that as my springboard into the next fiscal year.
Okay, then I'm looking at Mulligan's Hollow, and we're going for a grant that, and I don't see nothing there, but I do see for Sluka Field, 325,000. Is that for, this is for 19, you know, in your proposed budget?
What page is that on there, Mike? Sorry.
I'm looking under.
7.
Okay, just two behind, yeah. Okay.
We'll fix that up before we get to the presentation of the next budget, and that's why.
That's what Jim wanted us to let him know, and I didn't see that on there, so I thought I'd bring that up to him. And also, I didn't notice the fire truck fund. We always put 50,000 in on that. Is that on there yet?
Yep, yes it is.
Yeah, I do have that shown in the motor pool fund.
Is that in motor pool then? Okay, I'll look at there then.
And the dollars from the fire truck replacement fund is actually going to be used to fund the cost of that new vehicle.
Very good.
I do see the city campground on there.
With the unknown funding?
The unknown funding.
But there's
for
no
it.
funding.
No funding for it, yeah. Well, and I think in keeping with what I voted on the last time, I should probably vote no for one half of this and yes for the other half, because perhaps we could make some capital changes. However,
You vote yo?
you vote yo, but the reality is, out of respect to Pat and your team and the good management that you have done of what we have had at our disposal, I'm definitely going to be voting yes on this. So, just wanted to put that out there.
Yes.
Not just yo.
I think that 320 showing up under Sluka Field, although it says lights, playground, parking, I think that's the project we're doing with the bathroom.
Oh, I thought the lighting was for one we just discussed in 19.
Yeah, this shows, projected budget 1920, because we'll be doing that project. It'll be starting out this spring, but we won't finish paying for it until the next fiscal year. So it's mislabeled. It shouldn't be lights, playground, parking.
All right, because that's how I read it. I read it as being lights in it.
But isn't that's funded this year? You're just going to take that money and transfer it over, right?
To next year.
Right.
And it'll show that way in the new capital plan.
Okay, all right, okay, all right.
Work will start in
It was just mislabeled then.
May, so yeah, we'll probably have to get that straightened out, but thank you, we will get that fixed up.
And just because I don't remember, what was the $75,000 of property acquisition for?
This fiscal year, it had to be the building that you bought over by East Grand River Park.
Yep.
That was projected budget 2019-20, $75,000 property acquisition.
That's a placeholder, because I know that the city council might be looking at purchase of another property, and I put a dollar amount on it just to say, this is what it is, but I don't want you to tell you that you're buying my house for $75,000. I'll opt you and tell you I want it 95, so.
Well, it's the property by the Public Works garage. Yeah, vacant property,
Okay.
south of the Public Works garage.
Was the only item on that line, so couldn't remember what it was supposed to be. I'm not sure I ever knew.
Derek is listening, and he's sent me all caps with exclamation points, DPW, you didn't want that falling off the table.
You didn't want it going to Jim's house. Yeah, all right.
Free text.
Okay.
We got it, Derek.
We got it, Derek. Great.
All right, any other questions, comments, pieces of good humor?
That's the only things I seen that.
All right. We are ready to vote?
Bruger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes.
McCallum.
Yes. Thanks. All right, next item.
Next item is to submit language to the State of Michigan Governor and Attorney General for authorization to submit a question to the voters regarding an amendment to the city charter that will provide for additional taxing authority exclusively for infrastructure investment as follows: 1 mil in 2020, 1 mil in 2028 when the 2007 infrastructure bond is retired, and 1 mil in 2035 when the 2015 infrastructure bond is retired. The administration recommends approval.
Need a motion?
Moved.
And support. All right. Pat, you want to, this is pretty self-explanatory. Did you want to add anything? Or
Yeah, I spent a lot of time making sure I worded that
Okay.
carefully so that
So it was self-explanatory.
so your population would know what was meant by this. But the first step, or the next step would be to get the governor and attorney general to agree. It's important that we're okay with this language, though, that's in your packet, because whatever they agree on is what I will then come back to you and ask you to put on the ballot.
Okay.
And then if you change your mind, we'll have to go back to the governor and attorney general. But I think we'll be very efficient in getting their approvals. This is a pretty straightforward thing. I shared with you a number of municipalities that have similar millages, and it's good to know we're not alone. I've gotten a whole bunch more. I'll be sharing that with you and the public as we go forward. This is very common in Michigan, that municipalities are voting significant millages, in some cases up to 5 mills for infrastructure. And it's what it keeps your town together. It's what you got to do. So we'll continue down this path. If you vote yes on this tonight, we will approach Michigan's Attorney General and Governor for permission to place this on the ballot.
But in our case, we're not raising any tax, we're just transferring from one.
Yeah, we're transferring debt into
Right.
cash. Yeah,
So we're not raising anybody's taxes by
Right.
3 mils.
that is the plan.
I mean, the part of the story that's not directly in this language is the retirement of other millages as these come in. I don't know if those need to be locked together or if this is enough, because we know that they're going to be retiring millages that we're going to replace with the extra mill. But I don't really see that spelled out in the proposed charter amendment. Should that be referenced, that we have other millages that are going to come off the tax roll at the same time?
Well, that's the way it's fairly deliberately worded. We did the best we could to say, 1 mil is available in 2028 when the 2007 infrastructure bond is retired, and 1 mil in 2035 when the 2015 infrastructure bond is retired.
Yeah, but I'm reading the language that you're going to put on the ballot. The perpetual level of 1 additional mill, an additional mill in 2028 and 2035, and it makes no reference to the retiring millages. Does it need to?
I think that is really not necessary. Let me just read that.
Looking at what's going to be on the ballot, it makes no mention of the retiring millages.
That's true, it's implicit. It's meant to be implied.
It's implicit, does it need to be explicit?
I don't believe so.
As long
I think
as
it would
our
accomplish the same thing.
communication and communication with the general public is adequate, it should.
I just like things to be really spelled out.
And when it's not necessary because the approvals that you got for those other bonds expire when they're paid off. They no longer exist. You no longer have that approval, so you can't continue to access that money. So this would, in fact, be available to replace that mill. It's just something we will need to make sure we point out consistently throughout the.
It'll have to be part of our
presentation
to the people in order to get them to approve this. I'm wondering if the language here, it doesn't really tie us to anything to do with those retiring millages. It just says those dates with the assumption that the other millages fall off, that we're not going to replace them with anything else.
I suppose, Bob, to your point, if I were a voter and I walked into the voting booth and I read this without any other information, I'd vote no. Because I don't know that the other mills are falling off.
Don't know if they're dropping off or not.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, now it becomes a separate presentation to educate people. Here's what we meant by that.
Well, the other side of that is, if you make your ballot question so long and so complicated that people go, I don't get it.
No.
So our job is, I think, is to do a tremendous job of education rather than making the ballot question so long that nobody's gonna read it anyway, so.
Well, I read them.
But it's kind of a, which one do you wanna go with?
The question, the school just did that when they dropped their millage to renew it, when they had the millage dropped off. Didn't the Grandhaven Public Schools just do something on that order? I don't think it was worded saying it was gonna be dropped off or whatever. I think you may wanna.
They may not have.
Like it's replaced, all right? But I can't remember what it was either, but it was general knowledge.
Well, they had one that
that-
dropped off, and all they were continually saying was, it's not gonna be an increase, but we're gonna
Right.
They
continue
communicated very
continue it.
continuously that it
Yes.
was gonna be dropping off.
But I don't think it was in the wording on the
Language would have
ballot.
been there.
Yeah, it just became
Could
known.
present alternative language that clearly says an additional 1 mil for a total of 2 mils effective 2028, parentheses, when the 2007 infrastructure bond is scheduled to be retired. We could insert 2 parenthetical statements, but I guess it is a risk, it's a balancing act. Are you overcomplicating it then and filling too much in here and then Josh, you say, well, I'd go in there and I'd read that, and by the time I got about 2/3 of the way through it,
There's the other side.
I'm tired.
it's double speak, and I don't understand it, and I'm gonna go no. So everybody's got different levels of comprehension, and, we could spend a lot more time. This is from the attorneys. Yep.
And that's part of the problem.
Okay, you got me there.
That's a good one.
Legalese.
Pat, if you're confident that, putting that spot a little bit, that we can communicate adequately to the community, just as the public schools did with their millage, that this isn't an additional taxes, this is when it drops off, then I have no problem voting for this. And it sounds like you're confident we can communicate that.
I'm pretty confident.
It's ballot language that often confuses people, and I think our success or failure will depend on our collective ability to inform the electorate. We cannot persuade them, we cannot encourage them to vote one way or the other, but we can inform, and that's what we'll spend the next 8 months doing. And now that we have it up there on the screen, Scott can show our friends at home and around the world on the World Wide Web, the actual language. And I know that the listeners on WAWL cannot read that. It is a proposed charter amendment to increase tax limitation 3 mils for infrastructure.
I don't know if you're gonna read the whole thing and put them to sleep or not, Pat. Well, and I think the part of key communication component to this is we're trying to move from a debt financing to a cash financing, because we can get a lot more bang for our buck with cash than we can with debt.
Yeah, so we don't take that and spend that money, all that extra money on interest.
On interest, you
So
got
people
it.
at home understand that we don't wanna spend that. We wanna make sure that the money stays here and goes into our projects.
You got it.
Yeah, what is Jim's figure in that? Is 70% increase in buying power if we do things this way than if we do it through debt. So I think that's a very impressive number, yeah.
Well, it just needs to be clear that we do have millage dropping off.
Right.
So it's not a 3 mil increase.
No.
Well, Pat, if you're confident that we can convince.
You wanna wait until the next meeting?
No, we probably need to get this
You took a
rolling.
big breath there, Pat.
Yeah, I understand what Bob's saying is it's not clearly evident here that that it's not a 3 million. That is our job to make sure that people know that's why we worded it this way. So yes, I am confident.
I mean, in the middle of this paragraph, you say for a total of 3 additional mills. What are we supposed to think when we read that?
It's going to be 3 additional mills effective 2035, and I would wonder, why are they delaying this just to make it easier? That's what I would assume.
Yeah, so all the people who currently vote for it will be dead?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to take the word additional out of there and just for a total of 3 mills?
No.
Say
Because
additional, because it acts like
Yeah,
you're adding more
additional
on.
sounds like, oh, there's
That still
3
does sound
more.
like we're adding things on, and now we're
Yeah.
wordsmithing.
And now you know where
But
I'm,
wordsmithing it good.
now you know where I'm coming from with
I
my
do know what
thoughts.
you're saying, Bob, I do.
But who really understands ballot language? I mean, I don't know, no picking on the lawyers.
Hopefully
but-
everybody who goes in there and votes.
No, because you do your research because you're going, okay, what does that say? Have somebody explain it to me. Oh, okay, I'm either for that or against it, but by reading that, it's legal gobbledygook.
Would I be permitted, I don't think 2 weeks is gonna make or break your effort here, and you've given me some good food for thought.
Okay.
If I could maybe see if I could hammer away at it, work with the attorneys, it gives me 2 weeks to do that, and come back just with something that is more confident. Linda got in my ear, and she pays attention a lot to what voters think, and she says, you know, she'd probably lean towards trying to clear that up a little bit.
Okay.
I would definitely take the additional out of there, because you got it, in paragraph before there, it just says, for a total of 2 mills, you know? Then you come down here, for a total of 3 mills, 3 additional mills, it should be just 3 mills.
Could I say only 3 additional?
Only. Oh, is
How
that
about if
violating
you-
the rules of?
Make a motion to postpone.
How about if you think it through while we postpone this?
There we go.
Okay, so, do
Right.
you need a motion to do that?
I would move to postpone action on this until you can
He needs a s-
adjust the language.
We need a second.
I'll support it.
We're ready to vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Bruder?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes.
Okay, so we see this at our next meeting.
And if you come back with the same language, at least you will have vetted it one last.
You can convince me then.
Okay, now on to unfinished business, of which there are many and varied. One at a time. Do we have to do these one at a time? The first one particularly, okay.
One is to approve a final resolution amending Chapter 6 of the City of Grand Haven Code of Ordinances by restating Article 2, Section 6-13 regarding fireworks, to limit days and times when fireworks are allowed, and to increase fines for violations in its entirety. The administration recommends approval.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Trying to get through them.
Okay, and this one here is actually a state law that we're following, correct?
Right.
So people at home, because I know there's been a lot of confusion out there thinking that we're trying to make this up ourselves.
Oh,
But
no.
I had people come saying, what are you doing that for? And I go, well, because it's actually a state law, we're just adopting it, we're just following through on it.
Which is gonna make the 4th of July week, fireworks week.
There you go. That's good.
But I think the thing that confuses people is that under the state law, people can shoot off fireworks all the time, everywhere, anywhere. But we're allowed to place certain restrictions on, and these are the maximum restrictions we can put on.
That's it.
So that's what we're doing.
State gave us, yeah.
All right. We ready to vote? I think so. I don't hear any complaints.
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Bruder?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is to approve a final resolution amending Chapter 18 of the City of Grand Haven Code of Ordinances, Article 5, Section 18-78, regarding moving checkout time from 3 o'clock p.m. to noon at the City Marina. The Harbor Board and the administration recommends approval.
All right, we need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second, no matter.
And
Either one of us, whatever you want to do.
so we're good with noon checkout time at the Maria?
And we're at the hotel.
Yes? All right. We're ready.
Staying at the hotel. You're out by noon.
That's right. So this is
Loading hotel.
moving from, we are ready.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Bruder?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes.
Next item is to approve a final resolution amending Chapter 18 of the City of Grand Haven Code of Ordinances, Article 5, Section 18-96, regarding unauthorized berthing of vessels.
Vessels.
Berthing of vessels at the City Marina. The administration recommends approval.
All right.
So
A motion and a second. All right, we know what this is about.
Yeah, I guess
Don't-
anybody at home didn't listen to the last meeting. They don't
Right,
realize
this
that
was
we went through
about
all of this, but
if there's
we
a
have
vacant
talked
slip, you can't just, don't pull off the occupied sign and pull your boat in there and expect to live happily for the weekend.
There you go.
Not the other kind of birthday.
You are out of here, yeah.
Not the other kind of birthday.
That's right. If that's your problem, there's other
There's other places.
facilities
We have
for you
North
to
Andover
go.
Community Hospital.
This is just, if you're signed to a slip, that's your slip. And if that's not your slip, you're gone. All right.
Mike, when you said that, I looked, I thought, it must be past 9:30. Nope,
It is.
9:34. There it
Yeah,
is.
see?
All right.
We're ready to vote.
Ruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes.
Even now we're flying.
Item D.
To is to approve a final resolution amending Article 2 definitions and Article 4 zoning districts of the City of Grand Haven zoning ordinance regarding building materials standards.
All right.
The Commission and the administration recommend approval.
All right, need a motion on this?
So moved.
Support.
And moved and support. So we can tell you what to put on the outside of your building.
And we're giving you more options than you had before.
That's right, newer, better.
Yeah.
Loosened it up.
Jennifer is nodding, newer, better stuff. All right.
Ready?
Yep.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes. Next item.
Next is to approve a final resolution repealing and replacing Article 7 signage and to add, or is that the one I just did, isn't it? No.
No,
it's not.
signage is
Okay.
next.
Sorry, I'm starting to look all the same.
Okay.
This is to approve a final resolution repealing and replacing Article 7 signage and to add new definitions to Article 2 interpretation and definitions of the City of Grand Haven zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission and the administration recommend approval.
And need a motion on that.
So moved.
Support.
Move and support, and I don't remember the details on this.
Changes to this one are requests, so
Okay.
Jennifer's
Oh.
dancing back
Probably.
there.
All righty.
Or modifications.
Good evening. Jennifer Howland, Community Development Manager. So a few of the items that you asked to be changed, we moved the electronic message center change of message from 8 seconds down to 3, which is what it is currently. So we made that change. Construction sites, we're going to distinguish the size difference between residential and non-residential. 12 square feet for residential, 32 square feet for non-residential. And then in my memo, I left the temporary signs as is, but we discussed further as staff and have some recommendations for you on that. For residential temporary yard signs, limiting it to 3 square feet, which is a typical size sign that you see in the yard. And then for non-residential, we're looking at 12 square feet, which is what the proposal says right now. And then we can discuss the extra yard signs if you'd like, but right now it's still showing as 2 additional yard signs during the 30 days before and 7 days after an election timeframe. And we did take out a reference to temporary yard signs on non-residential property, taking out the reference to of a non-commercial nature. So that is a content issue, so we're taking that out. So it won't just be now hiring or for sale, it could be pizza 50% off today. So it could say anything, and they could have that at any time, in addition to a 30-day banner permit.
And that's more in line with a Supreme Court ruling recently. Yep.
Take that
content.
reference out.
Okay. Yep.
So now, if we vote on this now with these changes, do we have to vote on it again, or is this still the second vote?
This is still the second vote, but we're going to, by reference, the 3 square feet for the residential yard signs and the other changes that I made to
Okay.
be incorporating those items.
I don't think it re-triggers the 2-vote system.
That's what I
think
was wondering.
the second vote confirms the changes that we agreed to.
Okay.
I don't think we need to do any more.
I'm really going with, I think Bob discussed this last time about increasing or limiting the number for temporary signs during election time, you know, because we have some individuals here that would like to have everybody's sign on their yard, because I remember him calling me and said, Mike, I don't have your sign. I said, well, you got enough of them out there. He goes, no, I don't have yours. And there was, you know, everybody that was running at that time. And I think every one of us know who it is. But it wasn't that bad, and it's only out there temporary for a short time. I'd like to see if people want to put more than 3. I mean, a good example is if they're running for governor, let's see, Secretary of State, I mean, whatever you want to promote, you know, they can't put them in the right of way. They got to put them on their own property anyways. If they want to make their house look like a sign for 30 days or 37 days or whatever it is, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Whatever you all would like.
It usually doesn't. You don't see that many of them like it is, but sometimes you'll still see some with 4, 5 signs during election time.
But I don't know if anybody ever comes down and yanks those signs. The thing I would like to iterate is Mike saying you can't put them in the boulevard. You got to put them on your property, folks.
Yes.
Don't put them next to the street where it's a city property.
I just don't want it to look
There
like,
was, who was it?
I don't wanna be like Zisk and have it all over his house, you know what I mean?
No, but who was the lady, I'm trying to remember, that she was the, boy, nobody would get away with that, because she'd be writing a letter to the editor. No, no, there was,
That's another one.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, though.
yeah,
Can't remember.
no, no, it wasn't her either.
Oh, well.
A few of them out there, apparently.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, we all know them. They're all good people.
but boy, you couldn't get away with anything with her until she would.
But
she
during
was
election time,
eagle
I
eyed.
have no problem with signs during
Yeah.
election time. It's just, whatever.
I don't think it'll get abused a lot, but I think that
I
if
don't
you,
think so either.
if you start telling people, and granted, it doesn't have to be a political sign, it could be, I love my cat, as was discussed at the planning commission meeting. It could be
Election time.
any kind of signs, but it's during that time period. But about the time you say you can't have that fourth sign to support that candidate, then whether it supports the candidate or loves your cat or whatever it might be, I think that you're still on thin ice as far as restricting political speech.
If you don't want us to pull the third sign or the sixth sign or whatever your maximum is, one more, then please pick that number. I don't want to be
Well, that's just
calls.
That's
You
just
don't want
it, you know,
full
I think once you go out and start pulling those signs, or telling somebody, pick a sign to pull, for whatever reason, I think that we put the city in a difficult position. And I think we're better off to put up with the extra signs for that period of time than to put ourselves in that enforcement position. That's why I suggested we not have that maximum sign during those restricted dates. The rest of the time, and of course, the state has been restricting the number of elections right along, so can it be fewer and fewer of those opportunities. The other thing is that, like, for example, I live on a corner. I got 2 frontages. I can have twice as many signs as other people. Is that fair? What do you?
On the quantity of signs, I'm actually, I guess, odd one out from the, so far. I'd rather have fewer signs. And the way I tackled it in my house, I had 5 or 6 signs this past election, and I just alternated them. I didn't even actually honestly know that we had a 3-sign limit, if that's what it was. I just thought that, or whatever our limit was, I just didn't want too many signs in my front yard, because
See, most people do. Most people regulate themselves, so why do we put a number on it? Don't need to during election time.
Yeah, it's very seldom you see more than 2 signs. Yeah, but I'm more concerned about the size rather than, somebody has a giant billboard in their yard rather than.
Yeah, and I think that's well spelled out.
Right.
But it's a complaint basis only, right? I mean, somebody's gonna have to complain about it before you jerk them.
We
You're not
won't
just gonna go out there and
typically pull signs from private property. We'll always pull them from the boulevard, because that's,
Yeah,
Yeah, right, yeah.
shouldn't be there.
if there's somebody with extra signs, then we call them. If we can't get a hold of them, we send them a letter. We try to stop by their home.
On election time, you do that?
I'm sorry?
During elections?
No, we don't. So that's why, that's just during
That's why we
typical
should just
times.
eliminate the elections times. That's most better.
Yeah, we talk through that concept as well as at the staff level, and if you're not wanting us to limit the number, or you don't want us to enforce a certain number, then please don't have a number. And then
Okay.
we can meet the ordinance.
I like the time period, not the number.
Eliminating the number. 0. Who cares?
Okay.
It's still content neutral.
Was that the, then if you could get on section K, I don't know if you're all looking at section K?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just looking at the numbers here.
Yeah, that's where we spell it out. Temporary yard signs on residential property. Number 1 is a lot or parcel shall be limited to 1 sign per street frontage. Then it says 2 extra signs are permitted during a time period of 30 days prior to. We could just change that to
Just say
extra signs are permitted.
There you go.
We don't put a number.
Yep, that works for me.
Suitable, Jennifer?
Yes.
So-
It just says extra signs. So I'm on the record, I recommend you say 0.
Okay.
And then none of you have to put them out there. You all save. Nobody gets to box. I think they're cluttered and I don't like the way they look in neighborhoods. That's just me. I'm one voter. But now I'm the city manager and I will do exactly what you tell me. Extra signs are permitted during a time period of 30 days prior to an election. Now, these are temporary yard signs on residential property. And then number 3, signs shall not exceed 3 square feet in area, which is the 18-inch by 24-inch
Yes.
signs that everybody's been using.
Right. So
Those are the size in residential areas. Now, if you jump down to M, which, by the way, we're gonna switch and make that L, so that these 2 sections follow each other directly, that's just a switching of the order of them, so we don't really need to get into that too much. But on non-residential properties, one sign of a non-commercial, or well, I won't say non-commercial, just one sign per street frontage, a yard sign. Extra signs are permitted during 30 days prior to an election. Signs shall not exceed 12 square feet. So in non-residential areas, you can have 3 foot by 4 foot signs. One of them all the time, right? And as many as you want during 30 days before an election and 7 days after. All it takes, if you get an election and it's runaway craziness and you've got some that you really think are a problem, we aren't on shaky ground if we limit the number. That's been upheld again and again and again. It's the content. Doing it during the election system has been challenged, and one court in California found that saying it's during an election cycle is a form of content, because obviously you're trying to get at political speech. But according to our attorney, that has no controlling precedent over us here, and he doesn't expect it to take root and become controlling here, but who knows what happens with the courts. Doing it this way, though, is very defensible and easy, and I think you got it down, Jennifer.
Yes.
So, do you guys all understand what's gonna be in the ordinance? 'Cause
Yes.
this is the final reading.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
See, like,
Read it
Yes.
one more time.
I guess the other way of looking at it is by the time you send out all these letters, 37 days will have gone by.
I just won't know.
That's right, bottom line.
I don't understand it, no.
I'm still gonna vote no, because there's gonna be somebody in town who's gonna put 30
I'm voting
signs in
no.
their front yard, and we're gonna get phone calls that say, what the heck?
Yep.
And we're gonna have to say, sorry, we voted not to regulate that, which I see the merits to it, but there's gonna be that person. But that's all right. There you go.
Well, that's like limiting how many lights you can put in your yard at Christmas time.
Stand for that.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to vote? Or we still want to hash this out some more? Did we,
Collapse K and M together, so it's temporary yard signs, and I'm gonna
Okay.
distinguish between 3 square feet and 12 square feet in the last line item, residential and non-residential. So we eliminate a whole section. It'll be K and L.
Okay.
You'll love it.
all right.
Can we wait and see what it is?
Yeah, do we have to, do we vote on this sight unseen?
I can read it to you if you'd like. It's up to you. If you're uncomfortable with that, I understand. We've got people waiting for sign permit applications, hoping to take advantage of the new ordinance, to be honest with you, but they can wait another 2 weeks if you'd like.
Like to table it and read the actual language next time?
I think if you simplify, well, I know you wanna get rid of and clean it up, but a real minor change would just be to eliminate the number to no limit, right? Sounds like you're trying to combine 2 sections, and all we might need to do is just get rid of the 2 extra signs during election time and just say, no limit.
The only difference is the square footage of the two types of properties.
It can be fine to be temporary yard signs on residential property, and then L would be temporary yard signs on non-residential property, but it's quite redundant language. The only difference is the size of the sign, which can be accomplished in number 3 in one section.
Okay,
I'm not gonna.
sounds good.
I was just talking about elections.
Yeah.
That's all I'm talking
It will be
about.
done in this week. You're gonna get a copy of it.
And then I'm gonna have every phone call in the world come to me saying, what the heck?
You'll get a copy this week, and it'll be
You're right,
exactly what you
you're right,
think.
Josh.
There's gonna be somebody who does it, I know.
Okay,
Jennifer will write it up, and we'll have it out to you tomorrow,
okay,
and it'll be law.
all right.
It'll already be law if we say yes tonight.
That's right. And then if you don't like it, we gotta reintroduce it, but you'll love it. You're gonna love this. It's gonna be the best ordinance you've ever seen in any ordinance anywhere.
We're gonna update the whole zoning ordinance anyway.
There you go.
Do that.
All right,
Hey, you forgot to add, and it'll be my joy to enforce it.
I am looking forward to enforcing it.
There.
all right.
I complain. There won't, yeah, no. Somebody's gonna call and say, can my neighbor do that? I'm gonna say, you bet.
We took that out. We collapsed that together. It's
Jennifer's had
it's
enough,
good to
she's
go.
sitting down.
Yep, she's not dealing with us anymore. We're gonna
We're
vote.
getting punched, almost 10 o'clock.
Fritz?
Yes. I don't trust this thing. I tell you, when you do say yes to something, you don't know what you're doing, I tell you what, that's not, the old word is you're assuming it's gonna be right.
You wanna table it? Then you gotta
You're
make a
gonna love
motion to
it.
table it.
Yeah.
Well, those people are anxiously awaiting.
I already said yes, so I have to stick by it, but
Yes.
it was a tough one.
All right.
All the extra inflection doesn't change what it means.
It doesn't matter, it's still a yes, no matter how I did it. but-
I'll just simply say yes.
Bruder,
I'm gonna just say no, yeah.
Scott,
Yes.
Caleb.
Yes.
There you go. I'm wondering how Linda translates the yes and the minutes.
Sound like your yo you were talking
Yeah,
about.
right, my yo.
I really, yeah.
All right.
All right, where are we? F?
We don't have any more of these.
Yeah, how many more do we have?
Next item is to
Yeah, it
approve
was-
a final resolution amending Article 3, Section 40-304B of the City of Grand Haven zoning ordinance to increase the number of chickens permitted in backyards to 6. The Planning Commission and the administration recommend approval.
All right, we need a motion on 6 chickens.
So moved.
All right,
Support.
Mike's been waiting for
Can we
this.
increase that?
I think,
Unlimited.
I had,
Unlimited number.
Wait, where's Jennifer?
I think 5 chickens should be enough.
I was at a Mardi Gras party this weekend, and the guy owns 2 lots, and he wanted to do a neighborhood type thing. One lot is vacant, and he wanted to know if he could get more than 6 chickens, because he has enough space for whatever. And I thought, you know, that's pretty
Does he
interesting.
live in the
You can
township?
apply for a
He wants to do
zoning
a he
variance,
wants
right?
to do a
Zoning Board of
co-op.
Appeals?
Can you do a co-op chicken?
Let's just not have no numbers, just let it go.
Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't have enough to do.
I mean, this is serious. I mean, it was brought to my attention
meet
that
the
I was at a
test,
party,
you know.
and they come from a community where they could have chickens in that, but he says he has 2 great big lots, and
6 chickens per
and he wanted to
lot?
know if he could get the neighborhood to go together and have a co-op chicken, whatever, so while they're on vacation, someone would take over for them, whatever else, they all take turns.
Chicken
Is
pound.
that feasible, yes or no? Mike would like to have 8.
We could consider, but it would have to be crafted separately from this ordinance.
Can we
Okay,
just
I
make
know,
it
but
up
I
on the
just-
spot?
Right?
Can we just make it up on the spot right now?
Not tonight.
I thought I'd bring it. Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Yes, but,
Did they ask for a variance?
But,
but you can't have an accessory use on an empty lot,
Yeah.
so
well,
we
it's,
can't allow that. But if it were 2 lots combined.
There's 2 lots.
2 separate lots, it would be considered 1 zoning lot in the city, and you would be allowed to have 1 chicken coop with 6 chickens if this passes. So if you want something in a more co-op situation, we'd have to look at that, and we could look at that through the zoning ordinance update, since we're looking at community gardens, and it may be similar.
community coops. That's where the whole neighborhood takes over, then, you know, they
This-
take care of it, so, that's a good idea, thank you.
Sure, we'll take a look at it.
My one comment that I was gonna make during council comments, which I'm not gonna make because it's gonna be late and I'm already gonna have made it too late, I've already been long. I volunteered, or I went into Mary A. White School 4th grade class, civics class, and we just asked to speak on, you know, what public government's like and tried to engage the kids. So what we did is we had a mock city council meeting where we had 3 council members decide whether to allow 6 chickens, or I think I had inadvertently said 3 chickens or whatever it was before. But at any rate, you should know that Mrs. Huntington's class voted unanimously, 3-0, to allow up to 6 chickens in everybody's backyards. So they concur with council. There you go, that's it.
I bet they did it faster, too.
They did it a lot faster.
A lot faster than we are.
It was, yeah.
All right, is there any debate on whether we should have 6 chickens beyond this? Otherwise, we're
I'm
ready to
ready.
vote.
I'm ready to vote.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruder?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCallum?
Yes. That's it, folks. Report by city council.
Just did mine, done.
Who wants to start? Thanks, Jennifer.
I have no report.
No further report for me either.
No further report?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Baseball started. Tigers are so-so, they're still, but anyways, but hopefully.
Well,
It's early.
all right.
It's early, it's spring training, they split squads. and
I
see how
heard
they
we
do.
scored 6 runs in 1 game.
Well, that's more than we ever done in a long time,
Right.
so we're doing, they can score runs, just as long as we
We're-
can stop them.
I think we're doing good.
I'll be there Saturday. I will.
There you go. Anyways, I have no other report saying, just
Well-
hopefully we get through this cold spell again.
Yes, by weekend, we're supposed to be warm again. I have two things I want to discuss quickly. Number one, I understand on Grand Haven Informed or Grand Haven Misinformed, the city keeps getting beat up for closing Mercury Park. Mercury Park is not a city park. Just want to let you know, it's not the stupid city council that closed your park. It's in the township, so if you want to yell at somebody, go yell at the township, because it's not our property. All right. Second thing, I've been using East Grand River, the off-leash park, which is an amazing place for a dog to stretch its legs. Now, and I haven't, because I got a new dog, so I thought since it's so cold, it's nice to go there. But I was majorly, amazed that there are 9 doggy-doo bag dispensers amongst those 2, the large dog area and the small dog area, and the outside of the dog area where you park your car. There's 9 dispenser bags. There are 2 trash cans in the large dog area, 2 trash cans in the small dog area, a large trash can in the where you park your car area. The other thing that you find with all of that effort is dog poop all over the place. So with all that equipment for you to pick up after your dog, could you do it? So this is for all the people that use the East Grand River Park off-leash dog area. It's amazing to me that we provide everything there for people to dispose and take care of their pet. And they somehow or other, I don't know what they're doing, but they're not watching their dog and picking up after it. So that's my complaint for the day. And it's just a little, it's amazing. It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead somebody to the dog park, but you can't make them pick up after your dog. Please do. Cameras, that's what we need. No, seriously. I mean, these bags are even donated to us, right, by one of the animal hospitals. So it's just bend over and get it. It's just not that hard.
It's good exercise.
It's good exercise while you're standing there watching your dog run around. Other than that, it's cold today and tomorrow and warm up for this weekend. Spring is on the way. Yes, Pat?
The only thing I have is Sergeant Ercoli's here tonight. I know he's taking notes, so he'll be staking out the dog park. Oh, yeah. People use those. But also, Michael's daughter was accepted to all the academies, or?
Oh, really?
All
Awesome.
of them, and she chose Air Force?
Air Force?
West Point.
West
Yeah, I
Point.
knew I was gonna get it wrong.
All right, well, congratulations.
That's a huge, I don't know, I've never heard of anybody being accepted to all of them. Truly a spectacular young woman who's going to make our area very, very proud.
Absolutely. Good work.
And our new building official is in the audience tonight. He sat through the entire meeting. Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
You want to step up to the microphone so we can introduce you so the people at home can see you?
Right. Way when you
sit through the entire meeting. You ought to have your, yeah.
I'll teach you.
I'm Jeremy Reiser, and I am, yes, your new building official for the city of Grand Haven. So, any questions?
Hey! Bester, yes!
The office tomorrow at 8 a.m.
No, that was Matt.
right.
That was Matt's line. Way to go.
Gonna do just fine. Yep.
All right.
did that. Any questions?
No, that was Matt too. All right. Anyway, did you have anything else, Pat? We are done.
You call the audience?
Call the audience. If not, we will adjourn.